Hello and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Tarot. My name is Juliana and today's reading is going to be all about cultivating inner peace, just like a Studio Ghibli heroine. So whether you're familiar or not, these three characters are from the movies Kiki's Delivery Service, Spirited Away, and Howl's Moving Castle. And those are movies by Hayao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli. They're animated films. A lot of them came out in the early 2000s and also late 80s, 90s. And I was inspired by them to do this video because I actually recently watched a video essay by someone talking about how Miyazaki writes his female heroines and how a lot of them don't seem to have the neuroticism or inner turmoil that most of us are pretty familiar with in our modern lives. And while they do experience some inner turmoil and some turmoil outside of them, there's a certain aspirational aspect to them where we're inspired by how in touch with their own spirits and souls they seem to be, and how they are very they've got like an energy to them that we want to embody. And I really do feel that way when I watch these films. And I do feel like we could all stand to cultivate more inner peace and be more at peace with ourselves and who we are, no matter what difficulties we're going through or what's going on in the world around us. And in doing so, we can also help bring more of that peace out to the outer world. So that's my goal here with this reading. So if that sounds good to you, let me get into the group selection. So for group 1, we have Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. For group 2, we have Chihiro from Spirited Away. And for group 3, we have Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. So you don't have to be familiar with any of these characters or their stories. I'll get into that in each group. I'll describe the character and some traits that might be relevant to them and some aspects of their stories. But yeah, feel free to go down to the description box or to the pinned comment to select your timestamp and head over to your group. And as always, please use your own discernment when determining what messages are for you and which are not, and what advice sounds good. So yeah, I will see you over in your reading. Hello, Group 1. If you selected Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service, then you are in the right place. So today's reading, as I said in the introduction, is all about how we can cultivate more inner peace for ourselves. And I, as I mentioned, was inspired by a video in which a creator talked about how Miyazaki writes his female characters in Studio Ghibli films. And so you don't have to be familiar with any films, let alone Kiki's film, but you very well might be. And I was really struck by this person on YouTube who talked about how it seems that a lot of the heroines in these movies are somewhat lacking in an internal conflict, but it's not in a way that takes away or diminishes their character. Rather, there's something in their spirit that really seems to shine through. They're characters who remain complex and yet at the same time are devoid of some of the neuroticism of modern life that often we experience in the real world. And so I wanted to determine how we can each tap into our own sense of inner peace and quell our inner conflicts, and in doing so help bring out more peace within us and in the world around us. So I just wanted to really honestly help us harness the spirit and energy of a Hayao Miyazaki heroine, because they are delightful characters who have a lot of passion and drive and purpose, and also remain very individual, dynamic, interesting characters. So that's my purpose here today. So for this reading, I will talk a little bit about Kiki and talk about some things that may be relevant to you as the viewer, since you selected her group. And then I'll get into reading the cards. So we'll take some cards to represent what may be getting in the way of your internal peace at this time, if anything. And also we'll draw some cards for how you can then address these things and cultivate more inner peace for yourself. And I'll also pull some quote cards and song cards as well to see what else wants to come up at the end. So that's what we're doing today. So Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. Whether you are familiar with the film or not, I'm just going to go through some of the aspects of her character that really stuck out to me for this reading. So Kiki is a 13-year-old girl in the film. She is a witch, and all witches at 13 leave home and fly out on their own to have a year away from their homes and families where they can train to become a fully grown witch. And this training is not a structured training, it's more of an exploration and adventure that they embark on alone. Although in Kiki's case, she does have her little cat familiar here, named Gigi. And so it's more about the experience of striking off on your own and making your own name for yourself. So Kiki embarks on this journey with just her broomstick and her radio and a dream, and she heads off to a new town where she is an outsider and where she's not immediately understood or appreciated, and she also isn't sure yet about what her focus will be as a witch. So she's all about uncovering what her purpose will be and also making a name for herself in this town. And one thing about Kiki that sticks out to me as a character is that she's very passionate, driven, and determined, even when she doesn't know exactly what it is that she's chasing or what it is that she wants to do. She just knows that she has a purpose out there, she follows her heart, and she ends up stumbling into the right people and circumstances to help her out, whether she realizes it or not. Another thing about Kiki that's very important is that although she does struggle a bit with feeling like an outsider and feeling lonely in her new environment, she is also not someone who changes herself at all in order to fit in. So she might have some conflict within herself about not fitting in, but she's not someone who dwells on that or who changes herself in order to be more acceptable to the people around her. She's very much connected with who she is and who she wants to be, and she sticks with that, even if she still feels some of the rejection that you might expect one to feel when you're different in a crowd of people who have a shared perspective and culture that you do not come from. So that's another important aspect of Kiki's story and her character. She's a very lively individual, and she's someone who her passion and her heart can't help but shine through, and there are people who do see that about her even before she makes a name for herself in this town. And so she does end up receiving help and affection and attention from people in her life before she truly establishes herself and her new business, which she creates. She's a businesswoman as well, so she's creating her own delivery service, which she kind of just stumbles into, and it takes off, but not without its own complications. And she is definitely a character who experiences some complications in her journey, and yet she always keeps moving forward. She always stays determined. She has setbacks. She has moments of doubt, but ultimately she keeps moving forward with her endeavors. So aspects of her journey and her character might resonate with aspects of your journey right now, and perhaps elements of yourself that you resonate with in terms of the way that you experience yourself and your life as well. So take any of that resonates. And also, if you are interested and you haven't seen this film before or you haven't watched it in a while, you might want to check it out because perhaps it's being brought to your attention for a reason. I know it definitely was very inspiring to me when I watched it for the first time just the other day. So yeah, that might be something you want to do as well. But without further ado, let's draw some cards to figure out what it is that is currently getting in the way of your inner peace, whether you're aware of it or not, and see if we can, and then in turn, help you address those things and cultivate that inner peace that you want. And just embrace more of your true spirit and be as driven and as at peace with yourself as Kiki so often is in her own story. So we're gonna start by asking Spirit, your guides, etc., whoever wants to come through in this moment, for information about what is currently, if anything, blocking your inner peace. Oh, okay. What is currently blocking your inner peace, and is there anything that needs to be addressed and looked at for this group as of right now? Okay. You know what? Yeah, let's leave it at that. We have the Ace of Wands on the bottom of the deck. I'll put that over here. And for our first card, we have the Fool in reverse. Our second card is the Four of Cups in reverse. And our third card is the Queen of Cups in reverse. So this is interesting. Being that all of these cards are in reverse, it could be that there are things that are blocking your inner peace that you are unaware of, which means that if this resonates, of course, always use your own discernment, but perhaps some of you have been feeling a little bit chaotic or conflicted within yourself, and you're not actually sure why. So for those of you, if that resonates, then we're going to be addressing potentially some reasons why here. For others of you, it might just be that these are very much internal conflicts that are not necessarily reflections of what's going on in your outer world, but they are things that are mostly rooted in your inner world that once you address actually will help you reflect more of your outer world. Because I know there's a lot of chaos going on in the world in general right now, but for those of you who are experiencing a more peaceful existence in the sense that you're not immediately encountering any strife at this time in your life directly, you might still be internalizing some of the broader conflict in the world, and it might still be making you feel a little bit conflicted, a little bit unable to enjoy the peace that you actually do have in your life. And I do feel that that is something that is important, is that when we are people who are able to, in the moment, experience a sense of peace, we do want to take time and make sure that we're appreciating that, because it's valuable and it's important and it's what we want for everyone, right? And so if we can't appreciate that in our own lives, sometimes it's not helpful to drown with another person as much as it is to be able to maintain your own sense of individuality, peace, and strength, and then pull someone else up with you, right? And so it's one of those kinds of situations. So that could be relevant to some of you. But looking actually at the cards here, with the Fool, first of all, we have Aquarius energy, and also I see that as a bit of Aries as well. Very free-spirited, very free-thinking. And perhaps for a lot of you, so you could be almost like, this could be similar to Kiki as well, because I feel like Kiki very much embodies the Fool energy. I feel like perhaps a lot of you are more of a free thinker or free spirit within yourself, and you might find that to be at odds with how you perhaps were raised, the environments that you've often found yourself in, the way that you've been trained to think about yourself and the world. But there's something within you that really wants to break free. And so that could be causing some sort of internal conflict for you right now. And with the fact that the Fool is reversed, I do feel like it's something that is, it's almost like trapped within you right now. Like you need to almost let that free spirit within you out in some way, shape, or form. And the Fool being the free spirit, a lot of times you can look at the Fool and see it as foolishness, but often I feel like the Fool is a very misunderstood figure. And I feel like for you, it's possible that there are parts of your own nature that you have misunderstood. And it might be because it's been misunderstood by people around you, and it might also be because some of the attributes and beliefs that you hold that are part of that more free-spirited nature are denigrated by people that you see around you, or things that you've heard around you, or things that you've just internalized from the past. And so there's a feeling of being disconnected from this free-spirited part of yourself because you feel almost embarrassed of it or ashamed of it, or you are disowning it because you don't think that it's sensible. And you feel like it's almost like, also possibly a sense of like it's naive, or perhaps you want to be more of the quote-unquote realist as opposed to the idealist with their head in the clouds. But I think for a lot of you, you truly are that person at heart. You are someone who believes in possibilities. You're someone who believes in a better world. You're someone who believes in like more to life, basically, than what you can see. And you have a very open-hearted, open-minded approach to life. I do feel for some of you that you've quelled this a bit because perhaps it's not been accepted by those around you, and this is causing some inner conflict. And so we'll get into more about how you can help cultivate more inner peace for yourself, but one thing that's coming across is just looking at that part of yourself and saying that is okay, and saying there's nothing wrong with idealism, optimism, being someone who thinks outside the box, who sees things in a different way. It's not inherently foolish. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's something that you can embrace more in your life. And that doesn't have to mean that you are suddenly changing who you are in the external directly. It can just be, you can start with just embracing that within yourself and just accepting more of that perspective. And perhaps also allowing yourself to notice when you see perspectives that resonate with you in the external world around you, and where you might shut them down because you have some mental judgments that aren't actually what's in your heart. And I feel like with this Four of Cups here, yeah, it's almost like there's a part of you that's shutting down certain possibilities in your life right now because you're afraid to tap into the part of you that is more open-minded, that's more free, that wants to break free and experience new things, and that believes in more than what you already have. And that's causing you to overlook opportunities that would actually be suitable for you, or that would be valuable for you to explore, or that your heart really wants to explore. We have the Fool with the Four of Cups and the Queen of Cups. That's Cups energy. That's your heart, right? That's your emotions. That's what connects you with what you truly are, right? Your spirit, your soul, your passions. And so, yeah, there's a part of you that really is at war with yourself over following your heart, or simply squashing that, staying where you are, not pursuing things that really light you up. I feel that for a lot of you, for some of you, you might actually not be aware of this because you might be so dismissive and be so used to being dismissive of those things that light you up that you don't even notice that you do it anymore, but it still causes you to feel down. You might just feel down and not understand why. And so this might help bring that into your awareness, just addressing this directly and saying, you know, if you're like, I mean, maybe, but I don't know what it is even that I want. If you feel disconnected from what you truly want, what lights you up, what makes you passionate, it might even be just that you fully cut yourself off from that. And if that's the case, and you don't know where that passion, you don't know how to get that passion back, we'll get into it, but some things that are coming up for me now are going back to things that lit you up as a child, you know, that time before you were so set into like the adult world. And I don't know how old you are right now, but there's a mindset that you take up when you become an adult, whether you're actually physically an adult or you're forced to take on maybe more responsibilities than you had intended to take on at an earlier age, where you feel like you're limited by physical circumstances. You're limited by the world. You're limited by what other people think is possible. And so I feel like if you can tap into the time before that, or you can tap into whatever it was that brought you peace in moments of chaos, if you can't even think of a time before that, or brought you some kind of like fire, passion, whatever, if you can go back to that time that you last felt that, or what you really wanted to be when you were a little kid, and tap into that feeling. Like if you had dreams of a certain career path, or if you had dreams that weren't necessarily about a career path, but maybe about the kind of world you wanted to live in. If there were stories that really drew your attention, pay attention to the elements of those stories that really helped you get into your imagination. Anything like that, connecting with anything like that can help you access more of your true free spirit, the part within you that wants to follow your heart. Because Kiki is all about following her heart, right? She's all about that, and she does so. You know, even though she has moments where she's discouraged, she never once turns back on her path. There's a time when she loses her ability to access her magic and her powers, and that's the only thing that slows her down and stops her. But even then, she actually ends up rekindling her abilities through the desire to protect a friend, to save a friend. And she has a conversation with a woman who's an artist, and her Kiki's inability to access her powers at a certain point is likened to art block. And the artist basically says to her, well, why don't you just let yourself be for now? You know, like if you can't fly on your broom like you need to for your business, then maybe you're just not meant to fly right now. Don't fly, don't try to do it. Spend your time doing other things like I do when I have art block, and something will rekindle your inspiration again. And once it does, seize that moment and go for it, you know, and it'll come back to you. Basically having faith that what you quote unquote lost will come back to you, and taking the time to rest and allow yourself to naturally tap back into your inspiration, into your heart, into what connects you with your spirit. So that might be what's also happening for a lot of you, is perhaps you're experiencing some kind of emotional burnout where you just can't quite access your emotions right now. You're just exhausted, and you might need some time to let yourself rest a bit and let that rekindle within you, light that fire back up. And for some of you, it might have been that way for a long time. For others of you, it might just be right now. You're feeling a little bit of conflict within yourself because you feel like you can't access your powers, you can't access your passion. And it's kind of saying to let that be for the moment. And with the Ace of Wands here, I mean, that's all about like a new inspiration, new creative journey. And so I do feel like that is on the horizon for a lot of you, whether or not that's something you've been consciously looking for or hoping for, or if that's something that you feel like has been missing from your life, that's just been causing you some kind of anguish, whether you were aware of that or not. So I'm going to just get a few more cards to talk about more things that you can do to cultivate your inner peace, especially if you are feeling disconnected from your emotions right now, from your passion, from your heart, from what you really want to do. Let's see. So for group 1, what can they do to cultivate more inner peace in this situation? All right, we have the Moon, Justice, the Two of Swords in reverse. That's not, yeah, we're going to do it like this because I don't have enough room. So we're going to do it like this. And let's see if we have one more card that wants to come out. We have 2. All right, I'll accept it. I'll take them together. Let's move this over here. Okay. We have the Moon, we have Justice, we have the Two of Swords reversed, and we have the Four of Pentacles with the 10 of Cups underneath it. So, for you, first of all, with the Moon, there's a lot about getting in touch with your subconscious right now. Perhaps for a lot of you, this is something that's been a bit subconscious. Maybe you haven't been aware of where you've been shutting down your true desires, where you've been shutting down your heart, where you've been shutting down your inspiration. For a lot of you, you might have been judging yourself unfairly. And so with the Justice card here, it's about bringing fairness back into your conscious mind around the things that you want to do. So when I say you've been judging yourself unfairly, I feel like it's almost like taking on other people's judgments or assuming what other people might say or think about you if you tried to do something creative or tried to do something that you really wanted to do or made a different decision with your life. And I feel like with the Justice card here, it's taking back your own power of decision making. Also with the Two of Swords reversed, it's like being decisive, making your own decision, and it coming from your true desires and true wants rather than a place of judgment, whether you're taking on judgments that you assume other people will have of you or whether those judgments are coming from inside the house, as we might say. And I feel like a lot of you have been have been really harsh on like your ideas and inspiration. You might have been shutting down inspiration that you've been getting throughout. Like, even, like, you might subconsciously do this, because I feel like with the Moon here, this is about the subconscious. So this is about things that you do without necessarily being fully aware of it. It's just a quick reflex that you don't even notice that you have, where you might get some kind of inspiration that in the moment lights you up, but you don't even notice that because there's immediately a thought that's just being like, nah, we don't have time for that. Nah, that's stupid. Nah, that would probably end up going wrong or whatever. And so there's some kind of like subconscious part of you shutting that down that comes from a place most likely of fear or just patterning that you aren't aware of because maybe you've been around a lot of people who did that to themselves or did that to you in the past, or that's just it can kind of be kind of like it might also just be like the collective unconscious is a bit full of that kind of energy as well. Just like a kind of naysaying, cynical energy that gets in the way of your fool energy, which is a lot more free-spirited, like wants to go where it wants to go. It's your inner child. It's your creativity, It's flowy. It's fun. And so, yeah, Justice is bringing fairness back into and balance back into your conscious mind. And there are lots of ways you can do this. Obviously, so if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I, along with my mother, have a business, and we, along with providing tarot readings, we also provide hypnosis. And that's one of the things that hypnosis is used for, is to bypass the conscious mind, which is often very critical and it can be a bit resistant to change, and get into the subconscious where the deep patterning is, where the stuff that we don't necessarily have conscious control over or can sometimes run our lives without us realizing it, where that stuff is. So we can get in really deep, repattern some thought patterns that might be causing or connecting to a problem that's going on in your life, behavior that you're having trouble getting rid of, or even the trouble that you're having starting a new behavior, and tapping into that so that you can rewire that and essentially help yourself move forward with what you want to do and the life you want to live. And so, I mean, in a very real way, hypnosis might be part of a solution for you. People use that for things like creative inspiration all the time, for getting out of a rut, for undoing an old pattern. So that could be something that you want to look into as well, even just like for yourself, or listening to some like hypnosis online, if you're not ready to go see a hypnotist or something like that. Or just getting more aware of what the subconscious or unconscious is, and bringing that to your awareness in some way. Shadow work is something that you do to do that as well. So looking into these kinds of things, if you haven't before, might be helpful for you. But at the same time, if this reading is just bringing some of those things into your awareness right now, that might be enough to help you start actively noticing when you're being unfair to yourself and when you are being unfair to ideas that you have and actually, like, what you might want to start doing is when you notice that, even if it's in some small way, or even if it's about a small idea, instead of stopping yourself from doing the thing, actually go against what your, like, do the opposite, basically, of what your conscious mind is telling you, especially if, in that case, it's, like, shutting you down from a place that's just unfair, that's just not, that's negative, that's naysaying, that's not actually founded in real truth. It's like asking you to be decisive about what you truly want and to just go for things and try them and take one step forward towards that thing that you might have just shot down not because you think it's like sometimes you say something is a bad idea because you think other people are not going to like it. But notice that, and notice if that's getting in the way of you actually doing something that you want before you even do it, right? Because it's like someone else's reaction potential. So, like, for example, if you have a creative inspiration, like a project, a thing you want to write or draw or make or whatever, and you have an idea for that, and it's like, ooh, but then you're like, ugh, now, like, people would think that's so stupid, and you're imagining yourself, like, putting it out there and it going wrong, whatever. Catch that, because that is completely made up, right? Like, when you're having those thoughts, they can feel very real, but they are a complete projection into a future that does not exist yet because you did not make the thing. And you actually have no idea how it would turn out, no idea what kind of reaction it would have. You are completely making that up. It doesn't matter if you're making stuff up based on, like, past experiences you've had. Those past experiences are in the past, right? The future is unwritten. I'm getting the song Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. So for some of you, this really is about, like, a creative project or something like that. Like, really starting your own business, your own book. I don't know. Ooh, yeah, you've got a lot of ideas. One thing that might also help you get more in touch with your inspiration, if you really feel like you don't even know where it is because you don't even notice that you've been shutting it down so fast, is every time you have any kind of idea, write it down. So if you can, like, keep, like, a little piece of paper, a notepad, a post-it note, a little journal or something with you, or even just write it in your notes app on your phone if you have that with you at all times, like, writing down your ideas immediately. And so then you can forget about them for the time being, but having a time where you come back to your, like, little notebook and you look at what you wrote down and pick something, maybe every week or every month, depending on what kinds of ideas you're having, and pick it and go with it, right? Do something with it, right? Use your decision making to experiment with your inspiration. So not everything is necessarily going to turn out the way you want it to or have the sort of impact that you want it to, but the more you exercise that muscle of getting in tune with your inspiration and of also acting upon it in some way, shape, or form, the easier it's going to be. And the more you're going to build up these patterns and build up this muscle within your subconscious that allows you to access that inspiration, to act on it, and to not hold back anymore, right? And to realize how much gold that you have in there. Like, you have a lot of great ideas. You have a lot of things that you can actually turn into real, solid projects, or even, income for some of you. It could be business ideas and things like that. And you've got a lot of great stuff going on, and it's time to let that flow into the real world, right? Let that out. And with the 10 of Cups here, it's kind of like believing that you can plant these seeds that you have been hoarding, like these ideas that it's almost like you've got, like, a creative bank account, and you've been holding on so tightly to all the ideas in this creative bank account that none of them have actually been able to go anywhere. You haven't actually put the energy into them to make them grow into something. And it's seeing the potential in all of these different ideas to result in this ultimate emotional fulfillment. It's like feeling, first of all, emotionally fulfilled in the idea itself and the fact that you have these ideas, and being so appreciative and just in love with them. And also seeing where they could, like, envisioning the happiest possible outcome for them, but not being too attached to that, in the sense that with any creative project, with any creative project being like, whether you're starting a business or you're pursuing a new career path, even if it's a more structured kind of one, there's still creativity in your path. Creativity is not just when you're like making art specifically, but it's being able to see, use your creative potential to see the potential in these things that could result in great things, rather than shutting them down and saying that, oh no, it'll never work out, it'll just fail, people will hate it, like that's as much of a fantasy as it would be to fantasize in the opposite direction. But pick the fantasy that feels better, right? And experiment with that feeling and get more into that feeling. And also don't get too attached to any one idea or any one vision of the future. Have fun with it. But don't attach yourself to the specifics, right? Just let the ideas out and flow, and trust that the more ideas that you execute on, the more ideas that you'll get, and the more skills you'll build on your journey to get you to this place. It just won't necessarily follow the exact vision that you might have. You don't have to have an exact vision, right? You can have fun with imagining all the great outcomes instead of imagining the worst outcomes. But also, you don't need to know that those are exactly what's going to happen, because you can't know that, right? Your mind is limited by the past and limited by your present perceptions of things, which is totally fine and normal. That's how we all are. So there's also the element of course, trusting that the cosmos, the universe, God, the greater aspects of the world, the spirit that flows through all of us, will come together and create the best possible scenario for you that you can't actually personally, you can't plan out yourself, right? You gotta let it flow. You gotta go with the flow. But it's also just getting yourself into a more positive mindset, really, and stop and even you don't have to fantasize about the great things that you could have in your future, or the great places that a certain project can go, but at least don't fantasize about the worst, because a lot of times people think that, oh my god, what I imagine to be great and wonderful and amazing is just a fantasy, but what I imagine to be like sad and tragic and the worst and just lame and lousy, that's realism. And that is as much bullshit as the opposite, if not more bullshit, to be honest, because that's also just making shit up in your head, right? So I think some of you need to hear that when you shut yourself down, when you shut down what you truly want and what's in your heart, it's not real. It's not real, It's not. And you have to kind of live that experience in order for it to be real. And you know what? Kiki's delivery service really might be helpful for you in tapping into that part of yourself that is determined and that moves forward no matter what. And like I said, Kiki has her moments of discouragement, her moments where she feels stopped and halted by the universe, by her own powers, her abilities. She feels a little bit like an outcast, but she still keeps going, and she takes the advice of the people around her into consideration. She connects with people who are doing things that she admires, who can tell her from experience what she can do to help herself tap into her creativity again, right? Into her heart. And she doesn't do it alone. She doesn't do it alone, which also might be important for some of you. Like I said, you might want to look into working with someone. You might want to look into taking direct steps, like going to see a hypnotist about something that's been getting in your way or something like that, about tapping into your creation, your creative abilities, or going to any kind of professional out there who might be able to help you in whatever area you feel blocked in big ways where you're actually like going out there and making an appointment with someone and doing that for yourself, or in smaller ways where you're maybe just looking up a meditation online or hypnosis online, or just setting the intention to tap more into your creativity, to be more aware of and more open to your own inspirations, your own ideas, and slowly allowing that to become more prevalent in your life to the point where you stop shutting yourself down. Because I do feel like where a lot of your lack of inner peace comes from is shutting down your inspiration and your creative juices. And where you can invite more inner peace is to let that vibrancy out, acknowledge it, and even action it in the real world. Have a creative outlet. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like you're all of a sudden creating all these amazing projects and maybe products for some of you that you're putting out there right away. But just one step in that direction is going to help release some of, I think, the pent up passion, energy that you've been shoving down within you. And the last thing I'll say before I just get a few songs here is that for some of you, it might not even be about a project or a new endeavor in terms of like a business or something like that. It could be in any area of your life. But it's like anywhere where you feel like you have a lot of emotion, passion, and inspiration, even around like maybe relationships or like people in your life that you want to connect with more, or ways that you want to connect with the world around you that you shut down for yourself. It's like something in you is shutting down like your love. And it's like, don't do that. Ooh, yes, okay. Yes, okay. So we have some songs too that can have some additional messages for you. Ugh, I hate how this is not centered. I think I mentioned in my previous video, but one thing I'm working on is being more conscientious about my setup. Because I've got a Virgo moon, which is very detail-oriented and can be honestly a pain sometimes. So I know about getting in my own way as well. So we have the song I Won't by Colby Calais. We have When the Day Met the Night by Panic at the Disco. And we have Cry by Carly Rae Jepsen. So, first of all, I Won't is all about refusing to shut down your emotions. Okay, I'm going to read the lyrics. I won't do what you told me. I won't do what you said. I'm not going to stop feeling. I'm not going to forget it. I don't want to start over. I don't want to pretend that you are not my lover, that you're only my friend. Yeah, so this is all about refusing to shut down your feelings. You're not going to lie and pretend that you don't have feelings. You're not going to pretend that you don't want the things that you want. You're not going to pretend that you don't have the ideas that you have and that you don't have dreams. You're not going to pretend that you have no dreams and that you're just satisfied with what you've got if you're not, you know? It's being real with yourself. I think that's at the end of the day what this is about. It's just being real with yourself about what you feel and what you desire and what you want. It doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately, but it also means that once you process those feelings and allow them to flow, you might feel more free to actually act on them once they're not building up some kind of pressure inside you. You know what I mean? We have When the Day Met the Night, which says, when the moon fell in love with the sun, all was golden in the sky. All was golden when the day met the night. So, yeah, when the day met the night, it's like bringing the subconscious, bringing the moon, bringing those fears, those things, or even just ideas and things that you're afraid to look at, bringing that into the light and having it be, it's so beautiful. A sunset, a sunrise, they're so beautiful when the day and the night are interacting with each other. And it's bringing things to the surface, bringing things to light, letting them shine through, becoming more aware of what you're truly feeling inside, because it's beautiful. And it will bring about beautiful things in your life, whether you're creating a project, a business, a relationship, your own just inner peace in and of itself, you know? Think of the peace that you feel at watching a sunset or a sunrise, and imagine that is the peace that awaits you from bringing those subconscious urges and subconscious feelings and thoughts and patterns up to the surface, bringing them into the light. We also have Cry, which is, crying itself is a very physical way of like feeling your emotions and processing them and getting them out. It's letting them out of your body. So some of you might actually like need to cry, or you might experience a lot of emotion that brings tears to your eyes. That is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Crying is a good thing. It's a natural release that we all need sometimes. And for those of you where crying isn't necessarily even like, it might not even just be that you physically cry about something. It could be like you have some kind of emotional release in some other way. But, you know, things like creating, drawing, making art, writing poetry, writing stories, writing your thoughts down, journaling, exercising, doing there's all different kinds of ways that you can move energy, you can move emotions, and that might be really important for you right now. It's important for all of us, really. So we have cry. He never wants to strip down to his feelings. He never wants to kiss and close his eyes. He never wants to cry. So yeah, which is all about feeling like a partner or someone that you're with is not like in touch with their emotions, not open to sharing their emotions with the other person. And this, I think for a lot of you, since this is about your inner peace, this is really about you needing to do that with yourself. And it could also be about perhaps there's a partnership in which maybe you have been suppressing your emotions to another person, which might be causing some external strife as well for them and for you. And vice versa, maybe you also have people in your life who are doing the same. The ultimate solution to that is, in this case, what we're looking at is what you can do within yourself, right? And so anywhere where you're meeting emotional unavailability outside of you, look within and see where you're emotionally unavailable to yourself and let that out. That is where, like, you just need to release some of that pressure. Some of you just have a lot of energy built up inside you. You might not even know you have because you've been suppressing it for so long. And it's all about letting it out. And I feel like it's going to be really beautiful when you do. And like I said, it can be a process, a slow process. But if you set that intention, even if you set that intention with the universe, in just a moment, you take a few deep breaths, you connect to yourself, you just speak it out to the world, and then forget about it. If you just ask for that, the world will show you how to move forward and how to do that. So, I was going to maybe get some quotes. I feel like we're pretty good here, but I'll get a few. I didn't want this to be that long, but let me just see if like one quote wants to come out. Okay, yeah, we'll take that. One quote. We have this beautiful ink blotty kind of design, and it says, "Past failure does not prove that there is not a chance in the future. Yes?" From The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, so some of you might feel like the root of what might be stopping you in some ways from moving forward with whatever you've been suppressing is a feeling of failures in your past, and you just need to become aware of where that is stopping you from experiencing different things in the future, because sometimes we subconsciously expect failure and therefore we bring it upon ourselves because we don't actually try. We don't actually do what we want to do. And once we become conscious of that, people are often afraid of seeing what's inside and becoming conscious of the things that they've been suppressing, because when you are refusing to look at the thing, it feels scarier than it is because it feels like the unknown. When you actually look at the thing directly in the eyes, it becomes known, and you actually realize it's not that big of a deal. And in fact, once you are aware of it, you are in the position of power to do something about it. And that takes the teeth out of the threat completely, right? It's actually very empowering. There's an illusion of fear, and there's the feeling of fear that you might encounter when you are first choosing to look at the thing. But once that subsides, all that's left is your own peace, really. Yeah, a lot of you just need to let something out. Something's got to come out. You got to express, you got to be, you got to do, you got to just keep moving forward. And anything that seems like a failure, you can reframe it, but you can also just move through it and just be like, that doesn't say anything about me, who I am as a person. That's just part of the adventure. Some of you you might want to watch Kiki's delivery service and just bask in Kiki's energy, feel her energy, and feel where that connects with you and who you are, and see where you can embody that in your everyday life. So, yeah, I hope that is helpful to you. I feel compelled to say that whatever you are creating in your life is beautiful, and whatever you've been suppressing and pushing down, once you let that out, it's going to feel a lot better and feel beautiful. And you have a lot of wonderful things inside you that want to come out, and they're ready. So, yeah, that's all I have for you today. So please like, comment, subscribe for more videos like this, and also for shorts. My mom does shorts every day. We get a brief little reading for, your daily, just daily guidance if you're interested. You can also check out our website, which I'll link in the description below, sunflowerphilosophy.com. And there we offer tarot readings, hypnosis. My mom does human design, so if any of that interests you, check that out. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in another reading sometime soon. Bye! Hi, Group 2. If you chose Chihiro, then you are in the right place. This is a character from the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away, which came out in 2001. So whether or not you're familiar with that story, it doesn't matter, but ideally this group will have some useful information for you on how to cultivate more inner peace. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to first talk a little bit about this character and her story, and then I'm going to pull some cards to find out what may be blocking your inner peace right now, if anything, and then I'll pull some cards to get some advice on how to cultivate more inner peace and to overcome those blockages or work with them. And then I'll get a few additional messages in the form of song cards and quote cards at the end, and it'll just be a nice chill little reading for you today. So without further ado, let's talk about Chihiro. If you are not familiar, or if you are and you just need a little bit of a reminder, Spirited Away is her story, and she's a young girl. I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but her story starts when she is in the car with her parents, and they are on the way to their new home. And she is definitely unhappy with being uprooted. You get the sense that what happened is her dad got a new job somewhere else, and so the whole family is being moved, and she is just not happy about leaving her friends. She's sad. And then, due to a detour on their trip, her family ends up actually getting stuck in a kind of spirit realm. They go through almost like a little portal without realizing it, and end up trapped in, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it the underworld, but it does have that sort of tone, because the reason that they get stuck is that her parents eat the spirit's food and turn into pigs. And so then Chihiro is the only one who is able to help them get out and get back to their world. And it's one of those stories where I feel that even though a lot of scary things are happening to this protagonist, in the sense that, she was already unwillingly dragged along on an adventure across the country with her parents to move to a new place. Now she is unwillingly dragged on an adventure into another world where she has to learn the new rules of how to interact with people and what she can and can't do, and try to find her way home. And so her story is a bit stressful. She does have some scary encounters, but she also has spirits and other people who she encounters who are happy to help her and do have her best interests at heart. And so I believe I will have explained this in the intro, but I actually got the idea for this reading because I watched a video where someone did a bit of an analysis on how the heroines in a lot of these Studio Ghibli films are written, and how often their stories and their characters are full of this aspirational sense to us, almost of a lack of inner conflict, or characters who don't seem to be very neurotic and not really at war within themselves, even if they have a lot of chaos going on around them that they have to contend with. In some cases, it may be because these characters are actually children, and in Chihiro's case, she is. But nevertheless, even just the atmosphere of a lot of these films, and this one in particular, even with the chaos going on, there's just this sense of peace and calm and connection with nature, amidst all the chaos that I feel like we can all tap into. There's something very nostalgic about the film, even if you didn't watch it when you were a child, which I didn't originally. I watched it when I was in college, and it still had that sort of sense of nostalgia to it that I could tap into, even though it wasn't a childhood memory for me. So that's really why, for me, the topic that came to mind when I was so inspired by listening to this person talk about these Ghibli protagonists and thinking about my own experience with these films, is because they do inspire a sense of inner peace within me, and there is something that I find very aspirational about aspects of these characters and how they seem to relate to their world. So with Chihiro in particular, in order to survive in the spirit world and give herself a chance to get home, she has to ask for a job at the local bathhouse for spirits. And there's a lot in there about greed. That's certainly a theme of the film. Capitalism, you might say, and the ways in which we might be called upon to sell ourselves in order to survive, and the ways in which we might also compromise ourselves in order to survive in an environment where work is really the only way to do that, and often it involves working in an environment that is toxic or asks of us things that we don't necessarily want to give. And so that's a big part of her story, and she is a character who it's very notable that she is one of the main characters, the only characters that appears to be immune to the greed that's happening around her. There are parts at which a lot of other characters display a lot of greed and want and desire that she doesn't seem to have. What she wants most of all is simply to keep herself and to remember to keep a hold of who she is and her identity, because that's something that she stands to lose in this world, but also to just rescue her parents and to get home. And there's also another spirit there who she has some kind of connection with, who is very helpful to her, and he's a spirit that matters to her as well, so she wants to help him and keep him safe as well. And in the face of other characters who experience a lot of greed and desire, she's just simply unfazed by it. It's not something that she even participates in, even as it goes on around her, and that's what makes her such an interesting character. So elements of that could relate to you in your life. You might be someone who feels like maybe one of the things that is getting in your way is a work environment that you're in, or people you're surrounded by, or environments that you are called to be in at certain times. So take that if that resonates, but that's something that could be relatable to you. And there could be, we can't all be, the heroines of a Studio Ghibli movie, so for a lot of us, that kind of thing will cause some inner strife and chaos, which there's nothing wrong with that. So really my purpose with this is just to see how we can embody more of that energy where we're connected to our purpose, our spirit, that within us, which is passionate and cares about other people, and like has a deeper connection with things like the people in our lives, nature, what have you, whatever you feel most authentically drawn towards. So yeah, aspects of Chihiro's story might resonate with you. But also, if you haven't seen the film in a while, or if you've never seen it, I would highly recommend checking it out if you want, because there might be more messages there for you. But I'm gonna get my own messages now and work on, and pull some cards for what some blockages might be to your inner peace at this time, so we can get more information on how to overcome those. So let's get some cards. And I'm sorry, Chihiro, because I wanted to put you on top of the rock so that your head is not under it, but I was afraid she's gonna blow into the candles, so we don't want to do that. Okay, we got a card here. Ooh, okay, the Empress reversed. Oh, okay. Yeah, for the other group we got 3 for the blockages. For you guys, we have 4. Okay, so let me make sure these are all in frame. So some potential barriers to your inner peace right now. Well, so we have the Empress in reverse to start. The first thing that I thought of is that for some of you, this is very specific, so take it as it resonates, but for some of you, a mother relationship could be causing some kind of inner conflict. And when I say this, it's in reverse, and that makes me feel like it is internal to you, so it might not be like that you're around your actual mother per se, and that there's a difficulty in that relationship that's getting to you in your everyday life. It could be, but it could be more like if, say, you know, your mother has passed, or you had a difficult relationship with your mother and she's no longer in your life regularly, or you just feel like there's some tension there within you. It could be like aspects of that relationship that's causing tension within you, but it's not like from her external influence in the present, if that makes sense. It could just be like from your childhood, or aspects of that relationship that are showing up in your subconscious that you haven't always been consciously aware of. But it doesn't even have to be specifically about your mother. It could be more about how you take care of yourself. So you might have a difficult relationship with self-care, or you might be struggling to understand what it is that you need in order to take care of yourself. Like what are your needs? What will help you settle your emotions? What does your body need? You know, are you paying attention to those kinds of things? Are you in touch with those kinds of things? I feel like there's some kind of discrepancy there that is causing you to have some kind of internal conflict or chaos. And with the King of Cups next to that, so that is related to emotions. So, but the fact that it's in the upright, it might actually be a person. It could be a male person in your life who is being brought up here. It could be a father figure. It could also be a husband, spouse, friend, like any significant male figure or masculine figure. It doesn't have to be a man per se. And because it's in the upright, so I've been kind of taking like reversals as very much internal factors, and then upright cards as more external factors. So it could also be a boss for some of you. That might be very specific. But it could be a boss as well. But yeah, some kind of masculine figure that might be causing trouble emotionally for you right now. Obviously, if that is the case, you'll likely know right off the bat what I'm talking about. For those of you where that's not really resonating, it could be your own relationship with your emotions that might be causing trouble for you right now. Or this card could also be an indication that you actually have a lot of emotional maturity, and you do put out a very emotionally mature persona, and this is something that's actually a strength for you. But it might be that you might feel almost disconnected. Some of you might feel almost disconnected between the emotional front that you display to the rest of the world and your relationship with yourself internally. So it's almost like there's, for some of you, maybe a discrepancy in how you interact with others and the emotional maturity that you display outwardly, and that which you give to yourself, and that the ways in which you interact with yourself. It's almost like like you can be very reasonable and measured and understanding with other people, but you might struggle to give that to yourself. So that might be part of your conflict, is that you appear one way and you interact one way with others, and you just can't seem to match that energy towards you within your own mind, in your own body, etc. With the Seven of Swords here, so that can indicate deception. I think that's probably the most common meaning that people get from that card. It's possible for some of you, and you'll know if this is the case for you, or at least you'll be aware. Okay. So I said you'll be aware of it. I think that for some of you, it's possible there are things that you're not aware of consciously. But if that's the case, it's things that are going on within you that you're not aware of. Like you might be very good at denial. You might be very good at hiding things from yourself, suppressing thoughts and things like that. So there might be an aspect of that going on within you that's causing like some dishonesty with yourself. But it could also be that there might be a lot of, in general, paranoia in the environment around you, or some kind of deceit happening. Like, I'm getting like very much in a workplace, where it might be an environment where you feel like people aren't really straightforward with each other. They're not really necessarily honest. There could be a general energy of, there's people hiding things from each other. If it's some kind of relationship, like a one-on-one relationship that you have with another person, you might feel that there's a pattern of dishonesty there, or just not being able to be upfront and straightforward with each other. And I don't want this to cause confusion or paranoia in anyone who doesn't feel like that's their situation right now. So I do feel like this will resonate with you if that's actually what's going on. Like, you'll have a sense of like, yeah, I have been feeling like there's been some dishonesty around me, or I have been feeling like this relationship, like we're not being upfront with each other, or this person, there's been something off there. Like, you'll know. If that's not the case for you, don't try to make that, don't try to force that to fit, or don't let that make you become paranoid of the people around you. I do get the sense that you'll know if this resonates, and you'll be like, yeah, I've been picking up on that. And since this Seven of Swords is looking over at this Nine of Swords reversed, like I said, I feel like if there's been deception around you, if there's this energy of dishonesty even around you, this is something that you are aware of, and it's pulling on your energy. Like, you're aware of it with, like, internally you're worrying about it. It's something that's causing you internal worry. And that's why I do believe that if that's the case for you, you are aware of it. If that's not resonating for you, this Seven of Swords could be you getting carried away with worry or paranoia in like, almost like perhaps like there might be some worries that you've taken on, that you're almost like, that you've maybe been running away with a little bit, like getting a little bit too caught up in some kind of like negative, almost like what I was describing before, where I was saying I don't want anyone here to get caught up in paranoia of the people around them if you haven't already been picking up on that, and if you don't already know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like, for some of you, that might actually be something that's getting in the way of your inner peace, is that perhaps recently someone has said something to you, or something has come up where it's planted seeds of doubt or seeds of paranoia within you. And perhaps for some of you, that's been causing you a lot of inner strife. And that's been something that you've been getting a little bit carried away with in your mind. And there might be something there that, whether it's based in an actual act of deception or not, it might be causing you some turmoil that is not necessary and is also not productive, right? Like, it's causing a lot of internal strife, but you're not taking any action to in your external world to change it or do anything about it, or you can't, right? It could be something that's it could be something that's directly impacting your life, like in a workplace or relationship, but it could also just be something where, getting really into, say, some kind of, like, I don't know, for example, a government conspiracy theory. I'm not, there's no, like, specific theories I'm trying to call out here or anything like that, or thinking of even, but just in general, let's say there was, like, a theory that God, I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble with this conversation. Okay, how can I say this? Like, if you're getting really caught up in the idea that, like, someone is hiding something from people on a big scale, but it's also something that you can't do anything about in your everyday life. If you get too caught up in the powerlessness of that, the energy of powerlessness around that, of feeling like, well, I feel like this thing is true, but I can't prove it to anyone else, right? And I can't do anything about it. You start to feel like victimized in this deception, right? But whether it's actually true or not, getting too caught up in that energy of powerlessness, dwelling too much on things that you don't actually feel you can do anything about, can cause a lot of turmoil that's just destructive to you and not actually helpful to your life, right? So sometimes people can get a little caught up in the idea of not wanting to have the wool pulled over their eyes, and obviously, like, wanting to know the truth about everything, and feeling like feeling lied to. And the thing is, while it's not that we don't deserve the truth as human beings out here in the world, and it's not that we want to be lied to, or that we can't call out deception and things like that, but it's more like when we get so caught up in that, and when we make that a part of our inner worlds, we have so much turmoil within us that it actually keeps us often stuck or small, feeling like we're powerless, feeling like there's nothing we can do to take power over our own lives and make our own lives as beautiful as we want them to be, right? And so for some of you, there might just be something like that getting in the way right now of you really enjoying your life and being present and being connected with the people around you. And there's nothing wrong with getting caught up in paranoia in one way or another, whether it's a conspiracy theory or with the people around you or your workplace. And there's nothing wrong with looking into those things, or standing up for yourself when you need to, or looking into ways that you can stand up for yourself or for the greater population if that's possible. But when it leads us to really dark places within ourselves, and when it leads us to especially contemplate really dark things about the world, we have to remember that we can take a step back into the light and breathe and allow ourselves to connect back with that which is beautiful, right? Because that's really a big part of what life is about. And if you're here and you actually truly do want to cultivate inner peace within yourself, I'm presuming that actually sounds good to you. Like, you actually do want to be more connected with the brighter, more positive, beautiful side of life, and with your inner power as well. Like I said, if any of your beliefs, if anything that you are taking in from the environment around you is inspiring powerlessness or fear to be your dominant energy, that's when you really want to step back and see if you can take yourself for a walk, like get out into the world and do something different and reconnect with your sense of self and personal power. So if that resonates, let's get some more information on what you can do to cultivate more inner peace and, to get out of maybe some of these more difficult, darker mindsets. I really feel for some of you, it's kind of like this King of Cups energy is like if it's an actual person in your environment, it could be that this Seven of Swords energy is connected to them. Like they could be a boss, or it could be like just the concept of like, the man, the government, the people who make the the people who you perceive to have the most power in this world, right? Like a lot of anxiety or worry over that, which like, again, I'm not going to be like, no, don't, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you shouldn't worry about those things. Like, I get it. And I'm not going to get into, obviously, like, specifics or politics here, because that is something that is definitely not something that brings me a sense of inner peace, talking about those things. But I do feel that there might be a temptation here to take what I've said about like fears around potentially like around being controlled by someone else, around the government, if that's a factor for some of you guys, like any kind of like paranoia or fears or a sense of powerlessness. There might be a temptation to take that what I just said and project that onto whoever you perceive to be on like the opposite side of, like, say, the political spectrum from you, if that's something that you feel strongly about. But this is saying, like, I want to be careful when I say this here, but this is saying that whatever you're projecting across the aisle, so to speak, and this is not for everyone, this is only for people for whom this resonates, obviously, and you'll know, if you want to be honest with yourself, you'll know. Whatever you're projecting across the aisle, look back within yourself. This isn't saying that, it's not about one party being right or wrong. This is about you, what's happening within you, and where the chaos is also within you, because there is a lot of collective paranoia and fear and powerlessness. It just is manifesting in different ways, right? And so when you can recognize that within yourself, even someone who seems very different from you is going through similar things, but the semantics and the ways that we externalize that are very different. So if you can look at within you the ways that you are internalizing and externalizing that sense of powerlessness, fear, and paranoia, you can work within yourself to help remove that. I'm not talking about changing superficial things. I'm not talking about changing beliefs or things like that so much as I am looking at the energy within you and looking at what's perpetuating that and looking at what might help soothe that. Because we're just all about right now getting you to a place of peace within yourself. And I know that can be easier said than done, especially when there's a lot of chaos in the world around us, whether directly or in the broader sense of the world from what we're seeing online. Some of us it's happening in our front yards, backyards, whatever, and some of us it's more a general sense of unease and chaos, right? And whatever it is for you, I think there's definitely a need to be aware of that and be aware of if inner peace is important to you. There might be certain things that you need to pull back from right now and not be a part of. And let's talk more about that, because I did get some cards for how we can move through these blockages. So we have Judgment, the Ten of Pentacles. Well, Judgment's reversed, actually. Ten of Pentacles, Ace of Wands, and the Moon. So with Judgment reversed, there's definitely a sense of self-judgment. And this might be something that is conscious for you. You might be aware that you're very judgmental of yourself. You might also not. In some cases, you may, because it's coming out over the Empress. So you may have trouble nurturing yourself in a gentle way, right? You may motivate or push yourself through judgment, and this could be something that's conscious, but it could be something that is just reflexive. It happens so fast you don't even notice that you're doing it. There's a little bit of that in pile 1 as well. So with judgment, I feel like unraveling a lot of your self-judgment will also help you process and become more in touch with your judgment of the outer world as well. and the ways in which your inner judgment, your judgment of yourself, interacts with how you judge other people and the rest of the world as well. And bringing those two things into balance can help you cultivate more inner peace. So to become more aware of self-judgment, it's really, it just begins with catching yourself and recognizing it for what it is. And that can be very difficult. So something you might want to do is just set the intention to become more in touch with your sense of judgment. And you might actually find that once you do that and let that go, you might notice it more often throughout your day. Just notice the inner monologue that's happening, It all runs away with us at times, but especially if you are someone who does have a mindfulness practice or is familiar with mindfulness practices and maybe just hasn't been as in touch with them lately, like things like meditation and yoga and stuff that encourages you to be in your body and to be more connected with, your body. I feel like for a lot of you with the Empress, like it's very much physically nurturing yourself, taking care of your body, which helps you in turn take care of your mind. Like there's something there, like connecting with your body and maybe with your creativity as well is going to help you unravel some of this self-judgment that I think is getting in the way of your inner peace. But with the Ten of Pentacles coming out under the King of Cups, okay, I do believe there's something here about gratitude. So I was seeing the King of Cups could be something, like I said, like almost, it could be a boss at work or some kind of masculine influence in your life, or the embodiment of, because the King of Cups, the thing is, the King of Cups is pretty good vibes generally. And there is a sense of emotional maturity with the King of Cups. But I was saying for some of you, if the King of Cups is connected with that feeling of there's a masculine energy or a man or an entity in the world, like the government, that's connected to a sense of deception, fear, and paranoia for you, there's a real need for you to get in touch with your sense of gratitude. Because I do feel for a lot of you, there are things in your life, material things. Maybe for some of you, it is your abundance. Maybe some of you either feel very abundant right now or are working on your abundance. And perhaps there is some aspect of that you, the gratitude would be really helpful for. So for some of you, for example, there's two different examples that I can give you. One example is you are actually someone who is in a pretty prosperous spot. Like if you actually think about it and you consider your financial situation, we'll go with finances for now, but this could apply to any area of life where abundance is not just financial, but let's just talk about finances as an example. So for example, you actually do feel relatively secure in your finances, or if you take a step back and you look at your finances, you're like, you know what, I'm actually doing pretty well. Emphasizing your gratitude for what you already have is important here to combat your sense of powerlessness. Recognizing where you've grown yourself, where you have stability, is going to help you feel more stable within yourself. But you have to be open to recognizing it, looking at it, and acknowledging it, claiming that power. Claiming the power that you already have, whether it's finances or in other areas, emotional stability. And for a lot of you, that actually you might be, in spite of whatever conflicts outside of you are potentially causing trouble or what might be causing chaos within you at the moment, you might generally be a very emotionally rich, emotionally mature person. It's a matter of tapping back into that energy, acknowledging that, and remembering where you've come from and how you've cultivated that. That's going to help you tap more into your inner peace. It's realizing that you already have control over your emotions, that no one else can have control over those. You are the one who is in charge here, right? Some of you need to reconnect with that sense of emotional strength within you, because this is telling me that you already have that in abundance. And for others of you, or for, this could refer to multiple things in your life. Like it could be externally, like your financial abundance. It could be like tapping into the gratitude that you have for the relationships that you have in your life, the connections that you have. It could be tapping into gratitude for the creativity that you have. Whatever you feel that you have in abundance, pay attention to that. have gratitude for that and don't discount that. And if you're not really sure, if you're like if you're just feeling disconnected from your abundance in some way, from a sense of abundance, start looking for it in your life, right? And paying more attention to that and giving that more energy. With the Ace of Wands here, it's a very, it showed up in group 1 as well, but it's a very creative energy, inspirational energy. So something to, okay. So it's coming out over the 7 of Swords here. So your creativity, okay, there's a few different things I'm getting with this. So if the 7 of Swords is referring to some type of paranoia, deception, anything like that going on around you in your life, or things that make you feel like you're powerless, because like I feel like a lot of the times why being lied to or feeling like someone's being dishonest with us feels so bad is because it feels like it's something that's taking away our power, right? We feel powerless in the face of dishonesty a lot of times. But also, I mentioned there is an aspect of potentially getting carried away by our fears, getting carried away by our paranoia, and that can include a lot of reading into things and getting really just engulfed in fear. And not necessarily, and it's not even like so much about whether or not what we're reading into is like correct or not. It's more just about what's the energy we're getting from that, because whether we're right or not, is it making us feel more empowered or is it making us feel less empowered? But there's also a lot of creative energy within that. It's almost like you have to have a certain amount of imagination in order to imagine that which is being told to you is not true, right? And while we can get a little bit, we can feel ashamed if we feel like we've been tricked into believing in something that's not real, or we can be hesitant to dig into something because we don't want to seem paranoid or crazy. There's something in that energy of like, there's imagination, inspiration, it's like trailblazing to think of something in a different way than what you've been told, right? And so it's almost like, this is almost like taking that energy for yourself and using it to construct a more beautiful vision of what you want, right? So it's like, if you are able to believe in something that is more than just what you've been told to believe in any context, because this could relate broadly to many different things and ways of thinking in life. It's not just about like getting really caught up in, say, a government conspiracy, or getting like really caught up in believing that like, someone around you has it out for you or something like that. It's also like things like focusing a lot on how just challenging society's values in general, challenging the beliefs that people around you have, challenging the status quo in any kind of way. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's something that leads to new growth, new opportunities, new potentialities for different futures, right? And it's reminding you that when you tap into that kind of power, it doesn't have to be from a place of fear. You can create a better narrative. You can create a narrative and an emotional experience around questioning the status quo and imagining a different world for yourself and others that fills you with a sense of empowerment, right? So you can take that energy and make it about, okay, what do I want, right? Like if I know that the status quo is not what I want, or if I know that there's something going on here that just doesn't feel right, and there's something different I want out of life and out of the world, that's not what I've been told to want, that's not what people are telling me, what's the opposite of that? Like, what would feel more empowering? Like, what feels good in my body? What feels good? So, for example, believing that someone else, some entity outside yourself has power over you feels very bad. It feels pretty disempowering, and it kind of sucks. So how can we imagine a better world? Well, can we imagine that our internal power is actually greater than anything else? Like, that we have the power to create a world that's better for ourselves? that feels more empowering, that feels better. But it's also not about necessarily ignoring or dismissing the fears that we have that are based on past experience, that are based on our current realities, right? It's creating a sense of empowerment within ourselves that actually makes us feel better about taking steps concretely within our world to say, okay, well, what kind of world do I want? Well, I feel like the world that I'm in tells me that I have to sacrifice my ideals in order to make money. That I have to hurt, if anyone who's successful and has a lot of money has inevitably hurt people to get there. Well, how can I create abundance in my world around me without hurting people? What are ways that I can prioritize kindness, can prioritize thoughtfulness in my immediate world, even in small ways that help me move my experience towards one of compassion and one of caring for one another, as opposed to a world that feels like it's all about greed. Which, going back to this theme of greed, Spirited Away might be something that's relevant to you. Like cultivating that impassivity almost to the experience of greed that Chihiro seems to have, as she is much more single-mindedly focused on her goal of getting herself out, of getting her family out, and the people that she cares about out of this situation and into the world that they want to be in, right? And so it's like, how can you cultivate that kind of peace within yourself that's also proactive, that takes steps towards a kinder, more beautiful world in whatever vision that you have it in, right? It's like creating that inner peace within yourselves and not giving into a sense of powerlessness gives you the power to take whatever steps you can in your day-to-day life to create the world that you want. Be the change you want to see, baby. And yeah, this Ace of Wands here, it's like almost like taking the baton, taking those things that push you to feel like you can be powerless, like anytime you feel disempowered, turning it around into power for yourself, transmuting that disempowerment into empowerment. And with the moon here, I mean, that's like the subconscious, that's fears, that's the shadow, the things that are unresolved within ourselves that can, like, it's honestly, this is the reminder, because it's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel any kind of emotions. Those feelings are there for a reason, and it's not that they're wrong or bad. So it's accepting where you're fearful, where you have fears, and even experiences like paranoia within yourselves. And being like, I just got radical acceptance in my mind, like being radically accepting of that and acknowledging it and being honest with yourself about it. But then also not, like, being able to recognize when that's where you're coming from, that's the mindset that you're in, and disconnecting from it enough to see that it is not your reality, right? It's not something that you have to choose to act from. It's something that you should notice and take on as important information. Like, okay, I'm feeling afraid now. Okay, why is that? I'm feeling disempowered. I'm feeling like there's someone lying to me. I'm feeling like this environment isn't good for me. I'm feeling like this person isn't good for me. I'm feeling like this world isn't how I want it to be. And taking that information and being like, okay, so what do I want? What would make me feel safer? Would having an honest conversation help me feel safer? Would I feel more empowered if I spoke up in this case? Would I feel more empowered if I knew that I was working towards something in my life that I felt aligned with my values? Maybe this doesn't feel aligned with my values, right? How can I do that? Even if I can't, say, like, it's a job that you just don't feel aligned with anymore. Say you feel like you can't just up and quit your job. Well, what are ways that you can bring and introduce more of your values into your everyday life in other areas or in some of the ways that you work, Taking the opportunity whenever you feel that those feelings of fear, paranoia, unease, anytime those things crop up, noticing what's causing them, noticing if there's things that you can do about that, noticing if you can let them go also. Like, there are times when it's important to listen to that and move with that in mind and change that fear into something more positive. There's times when you need to use that to help you get away from a situation. There's times when you need to let it go and acknowledge that perhaps whatever narrative you're making up in your mind is actually not true. There's times when that's the case as well. It can be a little bit scary to even look at that within ourselves, but at the same time, there's so much power in here for you, I find. I feel like you've got a lot of, like I said, emotional wealth, maybe even emotional depth, emotional maturity. You've got that already. And it's a matter of not letting external factors, not letting disempowerment, like messages of disempowerment. There's lots of people out there who benefit from people feeling disempowered or feeling like they don't matter or feeling like they can't make a difference. There's a lot of people who benefit from that, but once you step outside of that mentality, it has no influence over you anymore, and you are free to live your life as you want to live. Again, it's not necessarily in disconnecting completely from that which doesn't resonate with you. You can take active steps to counteract that, to, again, contribute to the world that you want, as you want it to be, contribute to the causes that mean something to you. But doing so from a place of empowerment is going to feel better for you. It's going to help you have that inner peace that you want, if you're listening this far, something that you really want. And it's going to feel better for other people, and it's going to help you honestly be more productive towards creating a world that you want. I mean, I always like to, if I'm getting too in my head, especially about these kinds of things, about the world I want to see, feeling a little disempowered, I do come back to that old, like, fear-love kind of dichotomy thing. Am I acting out of fear right now, or am I acting out of love? And can I tap into the part of me that is afraid because there's things I love that feel threatened, or because, like, what love exists in this situation for me? What's this highlighting for me? What's truly important to me here? And can I move from a place of love, right? And sometimes that's the easiest thing to do, to get me out of my head, to get me into what I truly believe in and value, and to get me out of, like, the mind games that feel like a lot of the world is trying to play right now, you know? Whether consciously or just as a product of, like, the sort of chaotic society we find ourselves in. I feel like that reading wanted to take us in some controversial directions, and I really like don't want to get into that right now. I do want this to be about inner peace, and I do feel like there's a lot of chaotic energies and perspectives that we could stand to take a step back from if we want to have inner peace, but also to be more consciously creative, and to be, sorry, I just dropped a card on the floor, to be more connected to, you know, why we care so much in the first place, right? Like, why we care about the world and why we want good things for it. and what those good things actually look like. Like, what is actually a good thing to us? You know, what do we truly value? And make sure that it's not coming from someone who wants us to value the thing because it serves their purposes. But also making sure we're not getting too caught up in the idea that, like, someone else is trying to control us in the first place, and getting in touch with our own personal power and realizing that we can't be controlled. We are sovereign beings like, you know, it's a balance, right? It's a balance. It's being tapped into the collective and moving towards a better society. And it's also about being tapped into our own personal, like, wants, needs, and desires, and moving towards a better life for just ourselves and our community. And microcosm, macrocosm, they both impact each other. I just got for some of you too, like, it's not all on your shoulders, man. Some of you are taking so many things onto your shoulders that you need to let yourself off the hook for a second, right? Take those actions, do what you can do, and have that balance where you're taking care of yourself, you're nurturing yourself, right? Okay. I got a song card I want to share with you. So I have Everything by Alanis Morissette. So you see everything, you see every part, you see all my light, and you love my dark. You dig everything of which I'm ashamed. There's not anything to which you can't relate, and you're still here. So yeah, for some of you, it's being there for yourself. It's being there for your light and your dark. So if there's times when even, like, you're just, you feel like you've gotten too caught up in certain things, in fears and stuff like that, it's being, you know, being accepting of that, of those aspects of yourself, understanding that you care a lot, you know? But also this can be about just feeling more connected to everyone and everything, and getting out of the mindsets that might be around you of thinking that we have to live in a world where it's like every man for themselves kind of thing, where it's like I have to fight other people to live the life I want. Because there might be times when you do, and there might be times when like someone is trying to come after you for who you are, right? Like a lot of people in, like for example, like, you know, being part of the LGBT community, there's a lot of times when like people are creating laws that won't allow you to have the same freedoms that other people have. And, you know, wanting to change that and do something about that is not wrong. Like, you know, and taking actual action towards those things is important, and feeling emotionally affected by the stuff that's happening in your life around that kind of thing is real and true and important. But where can you also understand that no matter what anyone else wants to do to you, you are valid in who you are, and like where can you claim that in your life and live in an empowered way and like be who you are, and bring that sense of validity and empowerment to the people around you, and focus on the community around you as well. Like I feel like there are a lot of people that you can connect with who will love you just as you are and want a better world the same way that you do. And that's just one example of, you know, a group of people or of an identity or a way of experiencing the world where you might, you know, have very real feelings of being controlled and being disrespected, and how you can feel that experience and be there for that experience, and have very real fears, and at the same time also like step back and be able to live your life, right? Because there's an element, feeling empowered and living your life to its fullest, no matter who you are, is a true act of like rebellion against any system that would seek to tell people that they quite frankly shouldn't do that. So, you know, in doing that, that's also part of dismantling a system in its own way, you know? So there's that. That's something I feel like this could be a very controversial reading. I know. I know it could be because of just where it's going, but I feel like it is things that some people just really need to hear, especially right now, because there's just so much chaos going on out there, and my true hope for all of us, for humanity, is that that everyone gets the opportunity to feel empowered and connected with themselves, and to live in a world where we can just like be peaceful and love each other, you know? Like I would love to live in a world where people just like prioritize caring about each other and loving each other. Honestly, it's pretty simple. And yet I know how we do that in the society we have currently can get very complicated. So, you know, it's making space for the most idealistic perspective that we have, and also the stuff that we see happening around us and to us and in our lives, and how we respond to that, you know? Wow, I hope this is making sense, because it's pretty heavy. I'm not gonna lie. This is a little bit of a heavier group, but we also have Bloodsport by Sleep Token. Somewhere the atoms stopped fusing, I'm still your favorite regret, you're still my weapon of choosing, and out there, stuck in a quantum pattern, tangled with what I never said, you say it doesn't matter. So I feel like with Bloodsport, although, you know, for some of you maybe there is some kind of love connection that is, or heartbreak that's happening. Doesn't have to be heartbreak about a relationship, but it could be heartbreak about like the broader experience of the world right now, or like whatever, if there's been some actual direct chaos happening in your life or in your workplace, or just like seeing people, the way that people treat each other and talk about each other and talk to each other, if that is heartbreaking for you, to me, the whole tone of Bloodsport as a song, it's about grief. It's about grieving. It's about experiencing the emotions. And I mean, if you listen to the the original album track, there's also a piano version, but then there's like the album track. At the end of the album track, the singer just like cries. So for some of you, that might be something that you need to do. Is like, you know, move with the heavy emotions. The emotional maturity is there. I feel like with that King of Cups there, it's all, whether it's referencing also an external masculine figure in your world. And I was saying that could be a negative masculine influence, could be a positive one. There could be a very emotionally mature masculine influence around you in your life that is a source of comfort, or that you can go to for comfort. But since it came up in what's blocking your inner peace, you know, I was more leaning towards the potentially negative masculine influence. However, I do feel like it's also referring to what you have within yourself. Like there is emotional awareness and emotional maturity there. It's just a matter of letting yourself feel the feelings, tap into them, and acknowledging that, and taking care of that and nurturing that part of yourself with that Empress reversed, you know. I think the nurturing part is something that you guys are having trouble with, and you might judge the parts of you that either get a little too attached and fearful or get too emotionally caught up. Like sometimes it's easier to feel fear or anger than it is to feel grief and sadness, but we need to also feel those things. So sometimes this destructive, angry force that drives us is hiding just a deep hurt. Actually, maybe always that's the case. And tapping into what part of us is deeply hurt that it's making us feel so scared and angry. Tapping into that is going to help us let go of our fear and hurt. And again, doesn't mean not moving towards the world that we want, but it also helps you really evaluate what you truly do want, because you're not acting out of fear or anger anymore. And when you don't feel that fear and that rage, what do you feel drawn towards, right? Like, what is underneath that? Well, what do you actually feel drawn towards? What actually feels natural for you to do, to say, to feel towards other people? We need to start feeling towards each other, okay? We need to all feel things. Oh my God. I just don't understand why it's so hard sometimes for all of us to, well, I do understand. But like, there's a lot of, I feel like I haven't seen compassion or empathy being portrayed in certain like I don't know, there's a lot of compassion lacking from a lot of the ways that people interact with each other, that you see out there and like on like the news and like online and stuff like that. But there are also beautiful, compassionate, wonderful, loving conversations that people are having, where there's understanding and nuance and just like feeling and love, and like that's what I want so deeply for all of us to gravitate towards. And so anytime we're shutting that down within ourselves, because we all do, no matter how we interact with the rest of the world, sometimes we all have those moments where we just shut that down, and like there's a time and place for that. But man, if we can just feel more, if we can just let ourselves feel grief and compassion and sadness and stop covering it up with fear and rage, we might have some time to like pause and think and feel a little bit more before we react and respond and like say things. And okay, anyway. We have Praying by Kesha. I'm proud of who I am, no more monsters, I can breathe again. And you said I was done. Well, you were wrong, and now the best is yet to come. Yeah, so there's that empowerment, right? There's that there's that pride in yourself. Just like having pride in yourself, having faith in yourself, not feeling like you need that, not feeling like you're completely at the mercy of another person. And it's not to say that we don't all have times where we feel that way and where we truly are, but it's to say that when you can tap into your empowerment, and when you can tap into, and when you can truly feel like, when you can really look around and be like, actually, you know what, I'm okay right now in this moment. I'm okay, and I've got a lot going for me, and I am important, and I make an impact, and the things that I choose to do and say and spend my time on and put my energy into do matter. Ooh, that's powerful, man. Like, it's, you don't have to think too much about it. You just have to acknowledge it sometimes. All right? Yeah. Because that song right there, Praying, that's all about personal empowerment. That's all about saying no to the monsters, whatever they have been, that have kept you feeling like, you know, you're disempowered. Okay. Let's get a quote before I close this out. Because this is a lot. This is longer than I wanted it to be. But I feel like there's a lot going on in you guys right now. Nothing would teach me but personal experience. I'm just going to have to muddle through these first few times. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, this is the image on the back. So I feel like this is almost like your path through the darkness. Any kind of darkness, internal and external, that you've been experiencing and navigating, there might be some feelings of like, oh, I can't believe I got like stuck here again, or I can't believe I got lost in that darkness again, or, you know, trying to find your way out of it. You might have gone on a lot of different journeys, through a lot of different paths that, you know, might not resonate with you anymore at times, or you might find yourself judging yourself, like that judgment card. I think there's a lot of harsh judgment there that you need to unpack, because that might be preventing you from stepping fully into your emotional maturity and allowing yourself to let go of fear and anger, right? But it's also, you know, you have the experiences that you've had for a reason. And, you know, if you connect with that and if you feel that, then you have to give yourself grace for the decisions that you've made that you might regret, or the times that you've been in mindsets that you just no longer resonate with. Some of you might just be holding on to some shame around that, or to some regret. And it's, you know, this quote is here to say, you just got to go through the experience, and you learn what you learn through having had that experience. And there's no one on this planet who's had the exact same experience, context, life as you. And that's important for you to remember, because it gives you just an inherent validity to your own existence. But it also reminds you to validate the existence of other people as well. To remember that we're all of us, we're all alone in our own experiences to some extent, and yet we're all together at the same time. I do feel like for a lot of you, the answer to this is some kind of being able to hold potentially opposing or seemingly opposing perspectives within you at the same time, to hold on to the micro as well as the macro, to be aware of your immediate and internal environment and how that has a bigger impact and is impacted by the broader big picture experience of the world as you see it right now. And that's that's a lot, you know? And in order to do that, you kind of, and all of this life, it's an experience, right? And so you're not always going to inhabit the person that you really want to be. You're not always going to necessarily act with or think with or feel in the ways that you want to feel ideally. You're not always going to meet your expectations. You're not always going to live according to what you most value, but it's all experience. It's all okay. And you can take a deep breath, let go of your fears, and take a step back from those, and judge yourself less, nurture yourself, and take your power back, because you are very powerful. You have a lot of you have just power within you. You don't have to feed the stuff around you that you just don't see. Like Sen. Don't feed the greed, don't feed the paranoia, don't feed the fear around you or inside of you. But don't ignore it either, right? Okay, so that was long. That went a lot of places I didn't expect it to go. I hope that does help you cultivate more inner peace. I hope that you did find something in there that's helpful to you. And I just want to say, whoever you are and whatever your situation in life is right now, I am truly sending you the best, wishing for the best for you, for group 1 as well. I didn't say this in group 1 because it wasn't quite as heavy of an energy, but I want that clear. I want that to be clear that I do feel that for all the groups here. Just sending so much love and hope that you find, you find your way to the best possible life that's waiting for you, that you already have, even, just like the best possible experiences. Okay, so with that said, that's all I have for you, so I hope that was helpful. Please like, comment, subscribe, if you would like to. If you're interested, my mom and I do have a business. We have a website. I'll link it below. We offer tarot, hypnosis, and human design, all meant to be tools for your own self-empowerment. That's our main goal here, is just help people truly embrace who they are as individuals and also embrace each other as individuals. And yeah, so with that said, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in another reading again sometime soon. Bye! Hi Group 3, welcome to your reading. If you selected Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle, then you are in the right place. So before I get into this reading, which is all about how to cultivate inner peace, I would like to just talk a bit about what inspired this reading and what it entails. So I was watching a YouTube video about analyzing the heroines of the Studio Ghibli films, and what really struck me was the way that the person who created the video was describing these heroines as people who didn't have as much inner conflict as we might expect to see in ourselves in our modern day and age. Not to say that they have no inner conflict or no turmoil or that they don't go through struggle. It's not that, but it's more like they don't get stuck within themselves necessarily. They aren't constantly at war with themselves internally. And this really spoke with me. It spoke to me also because this person described them as being very connected to their inner spirit in some way. And, well, I don't know how they originally meant that to come across. To me, it really spoke to me in terms of feeling like you're really connected with your authentic self, with who you truly are, and on some level at peace with who you truly are. And so I was like, well, that's true. That's kind of the vibes that I get when I watch Ghibli films. So even if you're not familiar with these films, after this, you might want to go watch 1 or 2 of them because they're really good and very beautiful animation, beautiful music. But also, I just wanted to bring that feeling that I get when I watch these films into myself and into the world more, right? So that's why I wanted to do this reading. So, within this reading, I'm going to start by describing Sophie and her character and her story to see if some elements of her story and character relate to you on a specific level and bring something to your understanding of yourself that might be helpful in cultivating your inner peace. And then after that, I'll get some cards to examine what might be blocking your inner peace right now, if anything. And then after that, I'll get some cards to determine how you can move through these blocks and cultivate more inner peace. And then I'll also finish with a couple song cards and maybe a quote card or 2. So let's talk about Sophie first. So Sophie is from the Studio Ghibli film Howl's Moving Castle. And obviously, if you're familiar with the film, you'll know a bit about who she is already and her story. But for those of you who don't, or for those of you who need a reminder, Sophie is a young woman who she begins the film appearing very somewhat introverted, somewhat resigned to her position in life as working in her deceased father's hat shop, not really looking for a lot of attention. She gives off very introverted vibes. There are times when she comes across as a little bit like she's someone who is okay with her situation in life, but doesn't seem to believe that she deserves more. She doesn't seem to believe that she's very pretty. She doesn't seem to believe that she should be looking for more than what she already has. And it's not that she's sad or at odds with her situation, but she does give the vibes of being a little bit resigned and a little bit more passive in her life. And through a run-in with the local wizard Howl, who has quite a reputation about him, who has this moving castle that moves around the kingdom that people see and point out every so often on the horizon, she becomes someone with a bit more of a target on her back. So there's another witch who is jealous of the attention that she received from Howl after a certain encounter, and so then this witch curses her to become an old woman. And in this curse, she is not allowed to speak about the curse, so no one really knows that this has happened to her. And so what's really interesting about Sophie is that after she's cursed, she's obviously angry about it and she's frustrated, but she does seem to settle into her personality as an old woman very quickly and easily, almost like it's something that comes naturally to her. But something that's very interesting that we see in the old woman version of Sophie throughout the film is that she ends up being very, like, assertive, and she comes across as, like, that old woman who's seen too much to care what other people think of her, so she just says what's on her mind. And it's definitely at odds a bit with the impression that we had of her at first, but she seems to really take on and embody this almost character of the old woman. And throughout the film, she does learn to value herself more, speak up for herself through inhabiting this persona. And it's also a bit of a love story as well, involving the wizard Howl. It's very sweet, but I do feel like there's something in that seeming almost acceptance Sophie has of herself as she is, and yet her journey of also becoming more assertive and just more comfortable in herself through becoming this old woman that might speak to you guys somehow. I really do find her character very charming, and there is something very satisfying about how she isn't afraid to speak her mind as this old woman, which is, it's very, I don't know, yeah, there's something very satisfying about it. So there might be something in her story for you guys that is inspiring or speaks to you. And so if you are interested in watching the film, definitely, check that out. But also, maybe for some of you, there is a need to be more at peace with yourself and who you are and what you want, and be less focused on what other people think of you and how they perceive you. Kind of like old woman Sophie, and how she just kind of is like, she does give that vibe of like that old person who's like, I fear nothing anymore. Like, I don't care what people think of me. I just speak my mind because I've been around too long. I've learned how to not put too much emphasis on like other people's thoughts and things like that. And just become more assertive. So that could be something that resonates with you. But let's get some cards for what may be blocking your inner peace now. See if we can get more information on that. So for group 3, what is blocking their inner peace right now? Interesting. Okay, I'm going to put that upright, but it came out sideways. What is blocking their inner peace right now? Sophie, what do we want to do with you? I guess we'll we'll leave you there. What is blocking group 3's inner peace right now? And let's see. One more card wants to come out. Anything else? Okay, yeah. One more card. Okay, so we have the World. We have the 2 of Pentacles reversed. We have the 5 of Pentacles. And we have the 7 of Wands. Okay, so the first thing I thought of when the World card popped out, and the fact that it popped out on its side too, almost like in a neutral position, I feel like for some of you, it's almost like if you were asked, you know, what's getting in the way of your inner peace, you'd just be like, the world. Like, you know, you're like, it's like everything that's going on, everything that's happening, you just gestures to, you know, everything, basically. And with the 2 of Pentacles, this speaks to imbalance in some way. So I think, what's getting in the way of your inner peace is this, first of all, like, it might just be the general chaos that you feel in the world around you. And I feel like this is like the big picture world, not just your own personal world, although that could be a factor, but it could be just like the world at large. And in particular, I feel like what is getting to you right now is the sense of unfairness. Like there's some kind of imbalance or unfairness that you're witnessing and maybe also experiencing energetically, which makes sense if you are thinking of the world at large, because there are lots of ways in which a sense of imbalance is manifesting itself right now, I would say. A sense of like a push and pull, a tug of war, a very in your face sort of divisiveness that's occurring in a lot of different ways around the world. That feels like it's really rearing its head right now. And, you know, it depends on like where you are and what's going on around you and what you're hearing about and what you're taking in. But for a lot of you, I feel like there is a real sense of like there's an imbalance, something is unfair, and it's really getting to you right now. With the 5 of Pentacles as well, it's like, yeah. So this also, I mean, this is like really speaks to that sense of unfairness. But it also feels like being shut out from something. Like maybe you feel like you've been shut out. You're being kept from some sense of abundance. You're being shut out from a group or society at large or something like that. There's a sense of being closed out from what you want, what you desire. Maybe it's just also feeling closed out from like the world that you want. Feeling like it could be on a like I'm actually getting, okay, this is a very specific example. I just mean this metaphorically. For some of you, it could be literal, but I just got this very specific scenario of like these 2 people, because they're outside of a church, right? And a lot of times I can interpret this as 2 people who might be going towards some kind of like financial assistance or help, or they might not see the assistance that's available right behind them. But I'm also getting this idea that, which could totally be part of this for you. Like maybe there's some kind of, you're just not seeing the resources available to you. You're not feeling like there's options available to you in whatever, you know, situation you're in right now. But there's also this very specific scenario where almost like these 2 people were kicked out of like a congregation. Like say they used to be part of the church, but now they no longer have access to the community that they once belonged to because they were ousted from it. So for some of you, there might be a very specific scenario in which you feel like you've been outcast from some group, from some ideology, from some way of life. That is not going to be for everyone. But it can also, that can occur on many different levels. It could be very literal and very dramatic and very, like, in a very obvious way. But it could also be more of a mindset or an internal experience that you're having, or something even that happened a long time ago that you feel like is coming up right now for you, that is causing you some inner turmoil, even if it isn't happening in the present. So that's coming through for sure. And this 7 of Wands card, along with that, it's like a defensiveness. There's like a defensiveness, like you feel like maybe you're being attacked by other people, or you feel like people who represent what you believe in are being attacked by other people. And oh boy, there's so many different perspectives that you could be coming from feeling that way. So I'm not trying to pin down any specifics here. But yeah, like there's some way in which you feel like you are on the defensive, and maybe this could also just not be specifically about you, but like how you feel about a certain group of people that you empathize with or feel like you are a part of on a broader scale. Like this could be very large scale, like how you feel about certain aspects of what's going on in the world around you. It could also be very specific. It could be about like specifically what you believe in, who you are, that kind of thing. But there's a real sense of defensiveness, of feeling at odds with the world around you, feeling like there's unfairness and imbalance, and feeling like you've been outcasted in some way. So in a lot of ways, this feels more like externalized than the other groups. Like there was a lot more inner turmoil that didn't have a lot of like external basis, or if it did have external basis, I don't mean it like that, but it was more like, okay, it was a little bit different. I don't even actually know fully how to articulate it, but it feels a bit different to me. Although there might be messages, especially in group 2, that would resonate with you guys as well. But all that being said, if that does sound like you, like there's something like that getting in the way of your inner peace right now, let's get more information on how you can overcome this, or move through these blocks. Wow, okay, this is... I'll move the cards up so that you can see them. Okay. You didn't see that when I was shuffling them, but, like, the cards just kept flipping out one after the other in the same exact way. So, like, this is a much more straightforward feeling energy, I feel like, than the other groups, which is really interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm going to move them up so that you can see them. I'm just going to put them over the cards that we already have laid out. So over the world, I'm putting the 8 of Wands reversed. The High Priestess, I'm putting reversed. I'm putting over the 2 of Pentacles. Judgment over the 5 of Pentacles, and King of Cups over the 7 of Wands. So, okay. So, first of all, for this one, I'm getting the sense there might be some kind of very straightforward, like, external factor that you can point to, or multiple external factors you can point to that are interfering with your inner peace right now. I think what I was trying to say about the other 2 groups is that it feels like there was more, like, it was more about, like, internal thought patterns that were being triggered and maybe emphasized, where it could have, even if it was linked to certain things going on outside of them, it was being perpetuated internally in a way that was a little bit, like, less straightforward, or maybe even less obvious than for this group. Like, I feel like for a lot of you, you have a very obvious, like, external factor that you can identify and point to and be like, that is interfering with my peace. Like, you're just more of an externalized group as opposed to internalized. And I guess with Sophie, that kind of makes sense in the sense that, I mean, all of the characters that are depicted in these readings have external factors that are definitely causing turmoil in their lives. But with Sophie, there's, like, one particular person who put a very specific curse on her, and that is her struggle, and, like, really just, like, her main goal is to just get that curse lifted, and that's the main thing. There's turmoil going on in the world around her as well. There's a war, and there's the Howl's he's basically people are trying to drag him into the war, and since she ends up living in his house, she's impacted by that in that way, but she's also not really focused on that. She's not really focused on... So I know I said in the beginning that for a lot of you, you might be feeling like the world at large is causing you issues with your inner peace, and that might still be the case, but for some of you, you might not be as... It might not be, like, as externalized in the sense that you're just, like, in general, there's chaos. It might just be, like, there is a very specific aspect of the world that is causing me causing me issues with my inner peace, like causing me to lose my cool. Because, like, yeah, Sophie was not very, like, she did not want the war to be happening. She didn't really think much of it, but she wasn't overly concerned with it or dwelling on it. She was, you know, even with her curse, she wasn't really overly dwelling on it. That might be something as well, where it's like, there's something in Sophie's acceptance of her situation that helped her keep her, like, helped her be herself. Like, she had moments where she got frustrated with her situation, where things were chaotic, but she also was very, like, okay, I'll make the most of it, you know? I'm an old lady, and that kind of sucks sometimes, but it's also beneficial because I feel like I can be whoever I want to be in this body, right? I feel like I can just say whatever I want to say. I feel empowered and emboldened in some ways that I didn't before. So it's like there's a way that she's finding ways to use her situation to her advantage and be at peace with it, even as she is wanting to and working towards bettering her situation, breaking her curse. She's doing both at the same time. So that might all be relevant to you and helping you cultivate inner peace, is like seeing how to take advantage of whatever situation appears to be disadvantageous to you. But with the Eight of Wands here as one of the ways of helping you overcome your chaos that's going on around you, not rushing things, slowing down. And so this could manifest in multiple ways. So if there's a very specific situation that you're trying to push through in your life that you want to get to the other side of, slowing down and cultivating patience around that is going to help it probably go faster, but also help you be at peace. Like I said with Sophie, she wants to break her curse, but she also manages to take advantage of it in some ways while it's upon her. And through that, she doesn't even realize, but there's times when she actually looks young again throughout the process. She's not even paying attention. She doesn't even realize that the curse itself seems to be breaking down on its own. And it's something that, like, she's just so focused on what's right in front of her and doing the best with what she can in the moment, she doesn't even realize that the curse is starting to lift in certain moments. So for you guys, slowing down and being more present in that moment with whatever you're doing and not needing to push certain results or needing to see evidence of certain changes, that's going to help you feel more at peace with your situation, but also continue to move towards and maybe even in unexpected ways break through to whatever you want to break through to. If this is to do with, like, the world at large too, if it's like things that you are concerned with that are beyond your scope, right? Not just like a specific project or a specific situation in your life that you're pushing through. It could be like the desire for greater world change, the desire to see evidence that the world is getting better, improving, becoming less chaotic. And there might be a sense of impatience around that. So cultivating patience with that, zooming in more in your personal world, being able to see where you have advantages, where you have opportunities to create the change that you want to see in your immediate world and even in your inner environment, will help. And not focusing so much on watching the progress. Yeah, if you're, like, watching progress of something, and getting disappointed when, like, day to day, minute to minute, it doesn't seem to be improving, and sometimes it seems to be going in the opposite direction. If you're less tuned into all those moments, you're going to be less distressed about where things are going, and you might actually turn around one day and notice, oh wow, like, I can see the progress that's been made. And without having to see all the ups and downs that happen on a day-to-day basis, it'll feel much more organic and much more peaceful and much more normal for you to see that change. But when you're really caught up in the day-to-day and you're like, oh, well, like, you know, yesterday things seemed better, but then today it's like that happened and that was so much worse, you know, whether this is on a macro scale or, like, on a micro scale, like on a world peace level or on a I want you know, to improve my financial situation level, or I want to get out of whatever environment I'm in level. Like, things slowing down and being less preoccupied with the progress that seems to be being made or seems to be going in the opposite direction, will help you feel more at peace, and will help you help, like a watch, that like a watched clock never moves, or like a watched pot never boils, those kinds of sayings. It's like that. Some of you need to stop watching the pot, right? And with the High Priestess in reverse over the Two of Pentacles reversed, to me that's all about going inward, focusing inward on your own intuition, and also up on the ways that any imbalances are happening within you and your emotional state. Being really attentive to your own internal state around certain imbalances that you might like how like there's like the inner world and the outer world, and the inner world and outer world are actually connected very much so to each other, but your inner world... Oh, okay. So this is actually like, I recently participated in an art mindfulness get-together, and the exercise that we did was we drew a circle. The instructor had us draw a circle to represent our inner world, and then everything outside the circle was our outer world. And then we painted over that with like basically how we were experiencing the outer world, and then we went back in and like changed things around, added things, removed things from our inner world to make our inner world represent more of what we want it to be, right? So that kind of exercise might be really helpful for you in cultivating a sense of inner peace within yourself and seeing where the external and the internal are blending together, right? And it's like, okay, if you start on that micro scale with yourself, with what's in you and in your smaller world, and like you can even like use it as an exercise where you can see how what's outside is getting inside, but how can what's inside be cultivated and pruned and tended to in a way that will radiate outside into your external world. I hope that all made sense, because it was a really great exercise for that, and I feel like that's what this High Priestess is about, because this High Priestess is all about your intuition and your inner knowing, and in this case, I'm feeling like it's almost like a representation of your inner peace, especially in the reverse. And that exercise was something that really helped me get in touch with what all is going on in here, and how is the outside affecting the inside, and vice versa. And when you go back in and you edit your inner world and you move things around, or you draw stronger barriers, whatever like feels right to you when you're creating your inner versus outer world, there's a sense of empowerment there, right? Empowerment was a big one in group 2 as well. There's a sense of empowerment that you're physically tending to that inner world, like you have some sense of control over that again. So I feel like that could be a really great exercise for you. But really getting in touch with your inner world and noticing how it's interacting with the outer world. Like that's a big thing for you, however you want to do that. Then with this Judgment card, which is over the 5 of Pentacles, I think this... So it's interesting because I feel like with group 2, there was a lot of inner judgment. With group 3, you guys, I feel like there's some outer judgment. And some of that outer judgment could come from like, it could be outer judgment of other people's situations. Like what situations that you think other people are in, what ideas are you projecting onto other people? And that could be from multiple different lenses. The one that's coming through to me with this 5 of Pentacles here is perhaps projecting into other people's lives, like projecting pity onto other people. Like seeing people in certain situations and being like, oh my God, I feel so bad for them. Oh my God, like I feel terrible. What a terrible situation to be in. They're, experiencing this, that, the other thing, whatever. And like, okay, I want to be careful with how I say this, because here's the thing, right? We want to have compassion for other people, And we don't want to be completely unaffected by others' experiences. It's more than okay to feel how you're going to feel about things. Like if you see injustices happening, if you see people being mistreated, going in and helping people when you can, doing what you can to offer a compassionate hand to people who need it. Those are all great things, okay? But sometimes we're coming less from a place of compassion and more from a place of pity. And that's a completely different energy, although it can be, it can blend a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to tell what you're, getting in touch with your inner world would actually help you maybe see where you're coming from. But pity is, it looks down on other people in a subtle way. And it's also more of it's an inability to see and acknowledge the power and the wonder that exists in other individuals in all different kinds of circumstances, right? And there are some cases where, and it's like, you don't have to like judge yourself for feeling pity or like get too in your head about like, oh, am I feeling pity or or be like, oh, I shouldn't help this person because I'm pitying them. It's not that. It's more like shifting your perspective to something that it's really like an internal shift that leads to more external action in a sense, because I feel like you can help more people through compassion, through acknowledging their own strength and the fact that like they've got their own lives, their own situations, their own perspectives that might surprise you. So you can look at someone, for example, who has a different experience than you are having with pity without even knowing how they actually feel about their experience, right? So when you make that judgment, you're actually projecting a lot of powerlessness on a person who might not even feel that way in the first place, right? And even if they do, if you see them as powerless and they see themselves as powerless, then no one's going to be able to help that person because neither of you are seeing how this person can move to a place of empowerment in their own way. You're not going to be able to creatively think of a way to help them feel more empowered, to help them see their own power, right? But if you're coming from a place of compassion, there's more of, it's more about recognizing that person for who they are, for their own strength, their own uniqueness, that they are just as much of they're as valid and empowered and wonderful as a human being as you are. And then also being able to say, okay, like, do you need help? I will help you. Here's what I can do. Let's work on this together, and not be like, oh, I'm looking down on you. It's like you're looking at someone in the eye on their level, putting yourself on the same level as they are and being like, we are the same. I can see that there's something I can do for you in this moment. So I'm going to do that because that's an ability that I currently have and I care about you, right? But it's not like, oh, poor you, like, what can we do? Like, I hope I'm explaining this well, because it's a very subtle, it can feel like a very subtle difference, but it is very different energy. And especially when it comes to like just like seeing someone on the street and assuming things about their life experience that you have no evidence for, right? You have no basis to be like, oh man, wow, that person's life must really suck because they're different than I am. A really specific example of this would be like, okay, this is because I'm thinking of all very controversial examples, but I think it's important to acknowledge that this is the way that people think sometimes. I'm gonna take my own, something that's closer to my own experience as an example, so I can take more ownership of it and not like be projecting on other people as best I can. But so I'm part of the LGBT community. I'm the B part of that community. And it's not something I talk about a lot, but I want to use that identity to explain this. So it's like, I've definitely seen an attitude from some straight people, some people who are just not really familiar with the community express pity towards like LGBTQ people, you know, in the sense of like it's not hatred, it's not like vitriol or anything like that, but it's pity of like, oh, you know, I feel bad for them for existing that way, right? And it can feel like that's coming from a good place when you're that person who's projecting that onto another person, because you're like, oh, I don't hate them, but like, oh, I can't imagine how they could live a happy, fulfilling life as that person because of the things that I've been told, the attitude that I've been brought up to believe about this group of people, right? Whereas for, well, there's like obviously a lot of nuanced experiences for LGBTQ people, and there's a lot of hardship there because of external ideologies that don't accept them and create problems for them. There's also like a lot of love and joy and just the same amount of ability to experience like wonderful harmonious connections with one another that anyone else has. Like, you know, there's external factors that get in the way, but like it's not like there's some kind of inherent internal like disease or something like that that's causing like LGBTQ people to be miserable, you know? There's no need to pity them, but that can be the default from some people who just don't understand that and were brought up in certain environments with certain beliefs and views. And so that's what I'm saying, is like we all have the capacity to experience that when looking at other people with different experiences from us. Like that's one specific example, but there might be examples of that in your own ideology, your own thinking that you might not even be aware of, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, you know, it's just maybe where we've been brought up. But I'm seeing this here because for some of you, there might be a feeling of like pity that you're feeling for a certain group of people or other people in your life, even maybe just an individual and what they're going through that's really weighing on you. That's coming from a place of judgment of their situation without actually understanding and knowing the actual specifics and how they feel about their situation. And in some cases, it also might be pity that's coming from knowing that someone is struggling, but not being able to see how they can come out of it and stand on their own 2 feet. And there is maybe a sense of judgment or of like helplessness or, you know, looking down on them from that perspective. That again, this is about your inner peace. So this is something that's weighing on you. And it's an encouragement to be aware of when you're making those judgments and when those judgments are weighing you down, and being cognizant enough of that to start to change your perspective, to say, you know what, this is a really wonderful, beautiful, strong individual who might just need a little help right now, might need my help right now. But you can do that from a place of not feeling like heavy about it, but feeling encouraged and empowered on their behalf. And so this is something that, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to constantly be hyping them up or like be coming at it, like you don't have to force anything. But if this is something that you can become aware of, if it's weighing you down, you can subtly start to change your energy around it and help it lift you up. And you might also find that when you do that, you come up with more creative ways to be of assistance to people who need it, or you feel more at liberty to offer your help when it's actually asked for. And you also won't feel like you need to push your help onto other people who really aren't asking for it and don't want it. Because that's the thing too, is sometimes you feel like someone else needs help, but they don't see it that way, or they're just not looking for it. They don't want it. And there's only so much you can do in that case, right? You can extend a hand to someone, but that's all you can do. It's their job to take that hand. And if they're not willing to do that, that's their own sovereign choice. You know, they can make that choice. And you can take that responsibility off your shoulders, because that might be weighing some of you down right now. And I know that's easier said than done, but it is what's coming through. So I do feel like for a lot of you, if this is resonating, it's something that's well within your power to become aware of and to start to change and shift within yourself. And I think for some of you, you know, this might be a situation that hits close to home, whatever it is that's causing you to feel this way. Maybe a person that's you specifically really care about and worry about. And I don't want to discount that as well. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm saying there's anything wrong with you for feeling this kind of pity or concern. But there is a way to turn that perspective around and to turn it into something that's more empowering both for you and for them. And it might involve making some difficult decisions about when you're going to step in and be helpful and when you're going to stand back and let that person, live their life and make their own decisions. And finally, with this King of Cups here, over the Seven of Wands, well, the Seven of Wands is a very, like I said, defensive energy, especially in this case. Like, there's a fighting, like, pushing back kind of vibe that I'm getting here. Whereas the King of Cups, they're someone who is very, they wield their emotions maturely. They are very, and also could represent a figure in your life, like a father figure or something like that, or a husband, or doesn't have to be a masculine figure. It could be a water sign, someone like that. And maybe that's the specific person that you're feeling defensive towards, and it's encouraging you to take on a more emotionally mature perspective when dealing with that person. It could also be just encouraging you to emulate the energy of the King of Cups in your interactions when you're feeling defensive, becoming very aware of that and channeling that in a more sensitive and like I got this the emotionally detached, but not in a way where you're suppressing your emotions or you're not acknowledging them, but more like you're not letting them run your life, right? The King of Cups doesn't let his emotions don't run him, but he works with them. He is aware of them. He can actually, harness them and use them productively. And so I feel like for a lot of you, you're being asked to embody this King of Cups. And there might be someone in your life who embodies that energy, or who you feel like you can emulate in that arena, that you might want to use as almost like an inspiration of some kind, to embody this kind of energy when you meet with something where you feel like you have to be defensive. It's like the King of Cups won't let someone walk all over them if this is a specific situation where you feel like you're being defensive because you're trying to protect yourself. The King of Cups doesn't need to jump to his defense. The King of Cups is self-assured and comfortable within himself, and he knows what he's feeling, and he knows that his emotions and feelings are just as valid as anyone else's. And so he's got a more cool, calm, and collected vibe. But he's not as detached as, like, the King of Swords would be, for example. He can make... I just got the word charisma. There's a certain charisma. So if you have a lot of passion, if you have a lot of drive, and maybe it's manifesting right now as defensiveness and anger and, like, fighting for your right to feel your feelings, it's encouraging you to not suppress them, but to let those emotions fuel you, and to let them come through in the most authentic and vulnerable way possible. That you're going to have more charisma that way, right? Like, harness your emotions to fuel your charisma is what I'm getting. Like, appeal to people's more sensitive natures. Appeal to people from the level of, this is my genuine, authentic feeling. This is how I'm, instead of being defensive with them, be like, look, I know I can get maybe a little angry sometimes. Maybe I can overstep boundaries sometimes. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to do. Like, I want to work with you, not against you. Like, being so vulnerably authentic that you take down those defenses and you open yourself up in a way that will help another person open up to you as well. If that makes sense, I hope, because, that I feel like that, it's like these cards over here are really about how you're dealing with other people, right? It's like in the beginning, it's like more about how you're dealing with yourself. These are about how you're dealing with other people. I feel like there's a way that you can interact with people in your life in a way that feels more constructive, but also, most importantly, like, doesn't get you up in some kind of, like, tizzy, right? Like, you help yourself, you calm yourself down, you keep yourself cool and collected, and not out of suppression, but out of learning to take on a different kind of perspective. And I feel like doing this inner work is going to help you externalize this kind of more, like, less judgmental, more compassionate and calm and collected demeanor. That's going to get you further, I think, in some situations that you're having with people around you. So, at this point, we can get some song cards to get any more information that might be relevant to you. So, let's get some song cards for group 3. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, so we have Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. We have Middle Cyclone by Neko Case. I don't know what to do with Sophie over here. We have Shelter by Sleep Token. Okay. So, Dreams says, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. Women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. And also, I feel like with Dreams and Shelter, there's very much like a rain vibe. Like, Shelter gives me rainy day vibes, and this song also does. So there's something about, like, rain, about cleansing, about being more fluid and flowy with yourself and with life, letting life flow more, and acknowledging that there are going to be times when the tide seems like it's coming in hot, like it's like a high tide, and then there's going to be a low tide. There's going to be times when things seem up and when things seem down. Like I said, like zooming out, being less in the details of the everyday, like being less caught up in, oh, things seem to be going well, oh, now they're not going well, oh, they're going well again, oh, they're not going well. Being less caught up in that, more in the big picture, actually. Being more in the big picture of, like, letting yourself detach from, be more present with whatever is going on around you, whatever people you're with. For some of you, this is a very specific example, but for example, if you are, let's say you're, like, working with a client or a patient on some kind of something, on like recovery from something, or you're working with a client or patient or even family member on something that's happened to them, and there are some days where they seem to be really improving and doing really well, and then there are some days where they seem to be doing less well. You can get really discouraged if you get really caught up on those days where they seem to be doing less well, and if you're too focused on the progress that they're making, if you're too focused on, I want you to get this person to this point. It's like, not that you shouldn't focus on progress and not that you shouldn't help them improve, but also not losing sight of the person as they are right now, not pushing too hard to get them to a certain destination, but working with wherever they're at in the moment and meeting them where they're at instead of needing them to be further along in their journey. So for some of you, that might speak to a specific situation that you're dealing with, right? But like that can apply to other things, like obviously like needing the world to be at a better place than it is, right? Like being like, why were we doing better and now we're doing worse, you know, like that kind of thing. Like not getting too caught up in that minutia, being present with the world at large that meet the world where it's at, you know, be with it, and trust that it's moving in the direction that you want it to move. But also, like, I'm getting this feeling like some of you might be choking the progress that you want to see by holding too tightly to it and not letting it flow, not letting it ebb and flow like the tide. Some of you are just like holding so tight to something and you need to let it go. You need to loosen your grip. You need to let it flow, and you need to stop seeing every little potential mishap or thing that you think isn't going right as a sign that something's going wrong, and trust the universe a bit more on that. And just like let people be and let yourself be, you know? Let some kind of situation off the hook for the moment. Breathe, you know? With Middle Cyclone, we have can't give up acting tough. It's all that I'm made of. Can't scrape together quite enough to ride the bus to the outskirts of the fact that I need love. So this is where like that defensive energy is coming through. Like some of you have this maybe tough outer shell, this feeling like you need to act. Some of you might like put on a front, whether you realize it or not consciously, of like being emotionless or not caring about things. Some of you might come out swinging, right? And that's your toughness, right? But there's a real encouragement for you here to get in touch with your own heart and speak from the heart. That's where that compassion comes from. And when the more you can connect with that, the more you can get out of the perspective of, say, pity, for example. Like, that came up pretty strong. And get into the feeling of compassion, where you are helping someone from your heart, but not because you feel bad for them or you feel like only you have you're the only key to their success, right? You want to recognize the power that the other person has in their life and recognize your own power that you have in your life, and not struggle to usurp another person's power, even if it's from the best of intentions, right? You want to there's a whole lot of perspective shifting that is going on here. I feel like that will help bring you more peace, and it could be about a very specific situation for a lot of you. And then we have shelter. I might not read this. There's a lot here, but we have, when it rains, you don't take shelter, you don't take signs from God. Yeah, and actually, I think I'm going to leave that there because this is Shelter by Sleep Token, by the way. If you want to listen to any of these songs or watch this film, I highly recommend it. There might be more messages for you in this stuff. But, yeah, when it rains, you don't take shelter, you don't take signs from God. Okay, so in this particular instance, I am specifically interpreting this as, when it rains or when things seem to be going bad, you like go out and you like yell at the rain and you're like, why is it raining? It shouldn't be raining. Get this rain. This rain has to stop. You know, this rain's going to ruin everything. Where what is actually happening is that rain is necessary because whatever you're cultivating is growing, and you might not see the rain as a sign of growth or as something that, like, your plant. Let's say that there's a plant, there's a literal seed in this example, and and let's just say you just don't know anything about how plants and seeds work, you know? It's not your area. So you don't realize that, like, when it rains, that's, you know, giving the plant nutrients. The plant needs that rain to grow. And you think it's ruining everything, but actually it's helping, you know? So for some of you, you might be mistaking things as signs of setbacks that are actually part of the growth process, and jumping to conclusions or jumping to the sense of everything's wrong, I need to fix it, instead of sitting back and letting what is happening in the moment happen and meeting that from a place of, okay, what is this moment asking of me? How can I look at this moment differently? How can I look at this? And I'm not saying, like, there might be times where things, you know, you might have difficult feelings about certain circumstances, and it's not that you shouldn't have those feelings or that it won't be difficult, but it is saying, be aware to help cultivate more inner peace, cultivate more of a sense that everything is happening as it should be, everything is happening for a reason, and if you can really embody that and be at peace in that, you can also see where you might be able to take action that you wouldn't have recognized if you didn't feel like you had to jump in right away and fix everything, you know? Taking a step back, breathing, getting in touch with yourself, getting in touch with what's really going on around you, the energy. If you're really, like, sensitive and you can sense energies and stuff like that, giving yourself a moment to get in touch with that so that you can feel your way to a solution or to an action that might actually be more beneficial than what you might have jumped to without even taking a step back. Right? Getting in touch with your signs from God. If you actually do take signs from God asking for those, being more proactive about asking for those, you know, if that's something that you do or something that you want to do. And when I say God, I mean, you know, whatever conception you have of, like, the universe and, like, what created it and what source, whatever, I don't care, you know, deities that you work with, whatever your whole deal is, you know, being more proactive about asking for that kind of thing rather than jumping to conclusions or asking questions. If you have, like, your own divination practice, you know, being proactive about asking questions through using your tarot cards or tea leaves or whatever. You know, when you feel like something's going wrong, and trusting yourself to interpret the answers, to be open to receiving that guidance and not putting so much on your shoulders. For some of you, there's like a lot of weight on your shoulders. Ooh, that's what another thing the world card could be referencing is like, you feel like everything is interfering with your inner peace because you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and it's not. And it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to move through life that way. So some of you might not even realize you're putting the weight of the world on your shoulders, but once you realize it, you can take that weight off. Okay, so I also just got a couple quote cards, and 2 of them fell out, so I'll take both of them. We have these cards. Let's start with this one. This was her family, chosen by love rather than bound by birth, and infinitely stronger for it. From Gilded Cage by K.J. Charles. Okay, so for some of you, this might be, if some of you are dealing with a family member or family situation that is interfering with your inner peace, this is confirmation for that. Obviously, a little late for confirmation, so if you're still here, I'm assuming you already knew that this is about that, but you know. But chosen by love rather than bound by birth. I think there's something in here about choosing with love. So there's okay, how do I want to say this? So you can feel bound to someone, to a unit, to a family, to a group, bound to a responsibility, in that you feel like you're the only person who can do this thing, you're the only person who should do this thing, or you feel like I have to help this person just because, you know, they're my mom, they're my dad, they're my aunt, they're related to me. But the stronger energy is when you choose to do something out of love. And when you're choosing from the perspective of love, sometimes what you choose to do is different than what you want to do when you feel like something is your responsibility, like you have to do it, right? So there's an emphasis here of, like, even if you're, you know, dealing with family members, there are times when you might feel like you're doing something out of obligation or responsibility. Can you take a step back and look at what you're doing and change your perspective and come at it from a place of love? Be like, okay, wait, actually, I'm doing this because I love this person. And when you really shift into that energy of love and you take a moment to actually feel that love, it might help you feel lighter. Also, it might help you, again, approach situations in different ways than you would have originally. You know, it's the difference between coming at something from that 7 of Wands or coming at it as the King of Cups, you know? And that might look different for all of you. It doesn't have to look like, it can still look very firm, even at times, very direct, maybe even blunt. It can look all different kinds of ways, but it will feel different to you. It won't feel like you're stuck doing something, or like you're backed into a corner, or like you've got to get defensive about it, or be in someone's face in a way that feels depleting to you and to the connection. You know, this is coming from a place of love and really focusing on that being the driving force. We also have this heart here. And this is, you can't say this is just a stage when it's important to people what they're feeling. Maybe he'll grow out of it someday, but right now it's important. And this is from That Was Then, This Is Now by S.E. Hinton. Yeah, so for some of you, yeah, it's like that whole thing I was saying about letting people or letting the world or letting something in your life be at whatever stage it's at, being able to meet it there, like Sophie does. She's in a certain stage, and it's important because it is happening right now. That's where someone's at right now. That's who they are right now. That's what the world is at right now. But also at the same time, while you allow the world, the people, yourself, the freedom to be where you are, and you meet it where it's at, and you live in that moment, and you love that moment, you also, wow, this is starting to get really, really hippie vibes, but, like, you know, I'm feeling it, though. Like, you allow that, and you meet someone where they're at, and you meet life where it's at. And acknowledge that it's important to someone. Acknowledge that it's important to you. Acknowledge that it's important to the world. Whatever. It's growing pains. It's it's not just a phase, Mom, you know? Even if it is, everything's a phase. Everything moves on, everything changes. So when you can meet something where it's at and acknowledge that it's important where it is now, you also help it keep moving forward, keep progressing. Give it the space to grow. I think something in your life needs space, needs room, and needs, I feel like you might be overbearing over something right now, feeling like you've got to be hovering over its shoulder, whatever it is. If it's something that you're manifesting, a person, a situation in the world, you're trying to assert too much force where it just needs some space. Think of it like a teenager who's got to go through its growing pains, you know? A child who is going to have its phase where it needs to, like, stand up and then fall down and then get up again, and then, you know? Someone who needs their own space so that they can learn to take initiative for themselves, like that kind of thing. A project that needs space because it needs time to breathe in order to get off the ground, instead of going back and fixing it and changing it. And like a painting, if you're doing a painting and you're getting nitpicky about the details and you're not ever taking a step back or letting yourself put it down completely and then come back to it at a later time, you know, like you get too caught up in the details, too caught up in the day-to-day, too caught up in the small minuteness of it, you can't even see it for what it is. And when you take it that step back, when you give it some distance and then you come back to it, you'll be surprised with the progress that's been made on it. You'll be surprised with what you didn't see because you were too close to it at the time to see that. And you might be surprised with the options that you actually see in order to improve it. Yeah, so for some of you, cultivating inner peace is all about letting yourself take a step back from whatever you are trying to push too hard on, or work too hard on, or make too many changes to, or nitpick too hard, and letting it have its space, and then coming back to it at another time and realizing, wow, you know, look at all that growth and progress. I didn't even realize. It's all right there. Or wow, that solution just presented itself to me. I would have never thought of that a few weeks ago. You know, that kind of thing. Ooh, yeah, I'm just trusting in that. Yeah, you can let yourself off the hook. Some of you really have yourselves on the hook for something, and it's getting in the way of you just feeling okay, feeling like you can just be you, live your life, right? Whew. Yeah, and just be with be with the people that you are around, and let them show you who they are. Be with the project that you're working on and let it show you what it wants to be. Be with the world and let it show you where it's going and how it's growing. You know what I mean? It's like your child. It's like a kid. Let it show you how it wants to grow and how it wants to behave, and be there to direct it when you can, and be there to assist and you know, be there with compassion, but don't hover, you know? Don't hover. Don't nitpick, don't nag, let it be. And that will help you feel more at peace with yourself, because it's not all up to you, and you don't need that weight on your shoulders anymore. Okay, so that's all I have for you. I hope that was helpful in some way. I would love it if you want to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. If you're interested in personal tarot reading or hypnosis or human design reading, any of those things, we do offer those on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com, so feel free to check that out in the description. And yeah, that's all I got for you. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in another reading again sometime soon. Bye.